All right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. It is currently 2:48 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 20th of June 2025. How are you doing? Welcome to the live stream. All right. With that being said, a lot is going on around country for sure. Of course, we know Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary, had a briefing today. We're going to check that out. And of course, the former president, the 45th, no, the 44th president of the United States, Obama actually had a comeback epiphany. Okay. He had a comeback epiphany. We're going to check that out as well. And what is the update with Iran and Israel? And how is the Republican Party taking this? Okay, we're going to check out a couple of stuff. And also, there's been a big win for the commander in chief. The appeal court rules that he can keep the California National Guard. So, big win for Trump. Here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. President Trump's powerful efforts to secure our homeland are working. According to newly released numbers, last month, Border Patrol saw a 93% decrease of illegal aliens crossing the southwest border between ports of entry from May 2024 under Joe Biden, when they encountered more than 117,000 illegal aliens. And this particular statistic is absolutely astounding. In the month of May, under the Trump administration, 0 illegal aliens were released into our country by Border Patrol. Let me say that again. Not a single illegal alien was released into the interior of the United States of America last month under this administration. Let's contrast that to Joe Biden's failed leadership, where immigration officers were wasting their finite time and resources processing dangerous illegal aliens for release into the United States. President Trump immediately terminated that reckless Biden-era practice that undermined the rule of law, jeopardized public safety and our national security, and diverted critical resources away from stopping deadly drugs and violent criminals from entering our country. That's the reason why not a single illegal alien was released into the interior of the United States in the month of May. And as a result, we now have a border that is reaching unprecedented levels of operational success. The efforts by President Trump to stop the illegal immigrant invasion and secure the border in this short amount of time represent one of the greatest achievements by a presidential administration in the history of our great country. With illegal entries being overwhelmingly halted, the Trump administration is dramatically ramping up efforts to arrest and deport all of the millions of criminal illegal aliens that Joe Biden let into our country over the past 4 years. President Trump has directed all of our ICE officers to do everything in their power to carry out the single largest mass deportation operation in history. Illegal criminals who are hiding in America's largest so-called sanctuary cities will be increasingly targeted for removal. Radical Democrats will no longer be allowed to shelter illegals who threaten public safety as part of their cynical efforts to expand political power, drain the American taxpayer, and artificially lower wages and steal American jobs. ICE officers are courageous heroes, upholding the rule of law and keeping our citizens safe. And they have the full and unwavering support of this president. In economic news, President Trump's pro-growth agenda is delivering for the American worker. Through the first 5 months of the Trump administration, real blue-collar wages are up nearly 2%. It's the strongest growth in nearly 60 years, and a stark contrast from the negative wage growth seen during the first 5 months of the Biden administration. America is quickly returning to the successful formula of the first Trump administration: low inflation and rising wages. Once the big, beautiful bill is passed, this positive trend will only accelerate. Senate Republicans are continuing to push this critical legislation forward. The One Big Beautiful Bill will drive growth and supercharge the American economy. The Council of Economic Advisors found that the One Big Beautiful Bill will raise take-home pay by nearly $14,000 for a year for the average family of four. The CEA also found that the One Big Beautiful Bill will increase wages as much as $11,000 for the average worker in America. The One Big Beautiful Bill expands the child tax credit and makes it permanent for more than 40 million families with children. And the bill will deliver no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and substantial tax cuts for our incredible seniors. Simply put, the One Big Beautiful Bill is a massive win for middle-class Americans. When nearly 80 million Americans sent President Trump back to this White House, they were doing so expecting these popular policies to be enacted. Republicans in Congress have a mandate to deliver. And President Trump demands they send this historic bill to his desk for signature by Independence Day, July 4th. The American people are fully behind President Trump. According to brand new polling from Insider Advantage, a clear 54% majority of Americans approve of the job President Trump is doing. That's because this president is keeping his promises and taking action every day to improve their lives. And passing this bill will help fulfill a number of President Trump's core campaign promises. Now, regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today. So we'll kick it off for questions here in our new media seat. We have Eli Lake from the Free Press. Eli, go ahead. And
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
The Free Press. The decision to extend the, delay in enforcing the TikTok ban.
Sure.
Can you talk about how the White House understands its constitutional authority in light of the Supreme Court's decision in January that said that the president had to enforce the ban?
Sure. Well, as all of you know, because the president put it out on his Truth Social today, he did sign an executive order to extend the TikTok ban for 90 days. So in the effort to make a deal. And the White House counsel and the Department of Justice have reviewed this executive order, and I can get it for you. I think it's on our website by now. If it's not, my team will now put it up immediately. And you can read the language in that executive order. And the White House counsel's office and the Department of Justice strongly believe in the legal rationale for this executive order. They wouldn't have the president's pen hit it if they didn't. And the political reasoning for this, of course, is because the president made a promise to keep TikTok on. There are 100 million Americans who use this app. It's wildly popular. He also wants to protect Americans' data and privacy concerns on this app, and he believes we can do both things at the same time. So he's making an extension so we can get this deal done.
Can I get a follow-up?
Sure.
A few weeks ago, Tucker Carlson reported on a meeting between the president, Mark Levin, and others at the White House. Is there a leak investigation, and can you say who else was in that meeting?
I'm not aware of a leak investigation at this time. I, for one, do not reveal details about the president's private meetings without his permission to do so. But certainly the president does not like when people leak. He takes that very seriously. This entire administration takes that seriously, and that's why you've seen at agencies some of the cabinet secretaries have been given the authority by the president to let go of staff who are engaged in such leaks, especially those that risk American national security. Sure. Go ahead.
Caroline, thank you. So Rhino warmonger Lindsey Graham, he recently called on the U.S. to go all in.
That's quite the lead to a question.
Right. What's your message to everyday Trump supporters? Not the Tucker Carlsons or other big names, but everyday Trump supporters, grassroots who voted for President Trump to stop the wars, rejected this in the primary, going into another war with voting against Nikki Haley, and they want to see non-U.S. involvement in this war. What's your message?
Trust in President Trump. President Trump has incredible instincts, and President Trump kept America and the world safe in his first term as president in implementing a peace through strength foreign policy agenda. And with respect to Iran, nobody should be surprised by the president's position that Iran absolutely cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. He's been unequivocally clear about this for decades, not just as president, not just as a presidential candidate, but also as a private citizen. In fact, I have some quotes for you. In 2011, President Trump said, "America's primary goal with Iran must be to destroy its nuclear ambitions. We cannot allow this radical regime to acquire a nuclear weapon that they will either use or hand off to terrorists." In 2015, the president said, "The problem is that Iran poses an existential threat to Israel, our Middle Eastern allies, and the United States." And of course, the president has repeated that in his first term as president and his second term as president as well. That's why he was adamantly opposed to the disastrous Iranian nuclear agreement that was implemented by President Obama. And it's why he has given great latitude and given a lot of effort to achieving a diplomatic solution. But he's been very clear. Iran went for 60 days when he gave them that 60-day warning without coming to the table. On day 61, Israel took action against Iran. And as I just told you from the president directly, he will make a decision within 2 weeks.
A follow-up?
Sure. Go ahead, Natalie.
Thanks, Caroline. Can you confirm whether Steve Witkoff has been in touch with the Iranian foreign minister? And does Witkoff plan to go to Geneva tomorrow for talks?
I am not tracking that on Mr. Witkoff's travel schedule, but I can certainly check in with him to be sure. As for correspondence between the United States and the Iranians, I can confirm that correspondence has continued. As you know, we were engaged with 6 rounds of negotiations with them in both indirect and direct ways.
Thanks, Kelly. Just to clarify the president's statement just now, when he says that he'll make a decision in the next 2 weeks, is he saying that if Iran does not come back to the negotiating table within the next 2 weeks, that the president will strike?
The president is saying that he will make a decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. It's very clear and direct.
And is he seeing any signs of progress? He obviously is holding out hope for negotiations, but is he seeing any inklings of progress that give him that hope that talks are still possible?
Well, that's why he said in the statement that I just read for all of you, based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, he will make that decision within the next 2 weeks.
What makes him think there's still a substantial chance, is my question.
I'm not going to get into the reasoning and the rationale the president believes that, but that's his position, and he will make a decision within the next 2 weeks.
Caroline.
Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. President Trump has said previously in regard to Russia, he's used this phrase about 2 weeks several times in terms of like, we expect like a 2-week deadline and then you give another 2-week deadline. How can we be sure that he's going to stick to this one on making a decision on Iran?
Well, in those deadlines, as you've seen in respect to Russia, Ukraine, might I add, these are 2 very different, complicated global conflicts, as you know, that the president inherited from our previous incompetent president in the weakness of the previous administration. And the president has spent a tremendous amount of time and effort cleaning up these crises that were caused by the last administration's just complete dereliction of duty on the world stage and American weakness. Now we have American strength again. With respect to Russia and Ukraine, because of that American strength and the president's leadership, we have seen these 2 sides engage in direct negotiations. And the last time the president...
Shout out to the GOAT. Shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. Shout out to the GOAT. Thank you for the super chat. He says, shout out to the consistent supporters. Much love and respect. Shout out to the GOAT one more time. Thank you. You are really appreciated, Dr. Luke. God bless you. Here we go.
Instead, 2 weeks, you saw Russia and Ukraine have direct negotiations for the first time in years. And so the president is always interested in a diplomatic solution to the problems and the global conflicts in this world. Again, he is a peacemaker in chief. He is the peace through strength president. And so if there's a chance for diplomacy, the president's always going to grab it. But he's not afraid to use strength as well, I will add. Francesca.
Thanks, Caroline. What exactly would a deal with Iran need to entail?
No enrichment of a uranium, and it would absolutely not. Iran is not absolutely not able to achieve a nuclear weapon. The president has been very clear about that. And by the way, the deal that Special Envoy Witkoff proposed to the Iranians was both realistic and acceptable within its terms, and that's why the president is sent that deal to them.
And to follow up on what you told Natalie, are the talks that the United States is currently having with Iran direct, or are those through intermediaries? And if so, which countries are acting as the intermediary right now?
Out of respect for the ongoing discussions and negotiations, I am not going to get into the details of them. We've provided you confirmation for now. Go ahead. Sure, and then behind you too.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So thanks. Sorry. On the topic of negotiations and talks, does the president have any hopes or specific expectations for the talks tomorrow between European foreign secretaries and their Iranian counterpart?
Well, certainly the entire world is on the president's side when it comes to the fact that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. This is something that pretty much all of humanity, except for the Iranian terrorist regime themselves, agree upon. And so the president expects that Europe will deliver that message directly to the Iranians.
Why does President Trump believe that this 90-day extension on TikTok will provide more runway perhaps than the previous extensions that haven't led to a divestment deal?
Because it's more time to make a good deal. Simple question. Dasha?
Thank you so much. I know things are going day by day right now. The president wants maximum optionality. Is the possibility of the U.S. getting involved in regime change in Iran at all on the table at this point?
And then I have one on Sure. The president's top priority right now is ensuring that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon and providing peace and stability in the Middle East.
And on Medicaid, Caroline,
Sure.
the Senate put forward Medicaid provisions, particularly a lower cap on state provider taxes that hospitals have said would lead to mass closures, particularly in rural communities. Is the president willing to sign a bill that includes those provisions that Republican senators like Josh Hawley say will lead to hospital closures?
Out of respect for the ongoing discussions that the White House is very much actively involved in with our friends in the United States Senate, I won't comment on that specific provision. Look, the bill hasn't been sent to the president's desk yet. There's more room for change. The president, for one, I will reiterate, has been very clear on his priorities with respect to Medicaid. He wants to see waste, fraud, and abuse ridden from the system to protect it for tax-paying citizens who deserve those much-needed benefits. He wants to prioritize the sick, the needy, the poor in this country who deserve those benefits, not the 1.4 million illegal aliens who are receiving them. And he wants to make sure this one big beautiful bill kicks those illegal aliens off of this program to preserve it and protect it and strengthen it for the American people. And the president has been very clear in that message to his friends in the Senate. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
Logistically, if the Iranians are getting to Geneva, does that mean they've found a way to get to the White House?
I am not going to get into hypotheticals, but as you heard from the president yesterday, they have expressed interest in doing so.
There's a lot
Philip.
of pressure on the president to come to the aid of Israel. There's a lot of pressure on him to finish the job with force. How is he balancing the concern that if he doesn't choose to do that, that it would send a message to Xi Jinping about the U.S. commitment to Taiwan?
Well, the president enjoys a very respectful and cordial relationship with China's president. He has long maintained that, even in his first term. And China and the United States share many strategic interests, both in terms of economics and also, of course, global affairs and foreign policy as well. However, when it comes to balancing these different viewpoints, the president is balancing a lot of viewpoints, and he is listening not just to other world leaders, but to his advisors and to people here in the country and the American people too. And I think that's what makes this president such a great leader, is his ability to listen and make a good decision on behalf of the American public based on his instincts and his experience. Don't forget, this is a president who was here before, and the world was a much more peaceful and stable place when he left office than when he came back in after the past 4 years of complete incompetence by the previous president. Philip, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. Two quick questions. When the president says Iran is very close to a nuclear weapon, is he relying on U.S. intelligence or intelligence sharing from an ally to make that assessment?
It is a fact, and the United States government maintains this fact, that Iran has never been closer to obtaining a nuclear weapon.
And then if the U.S. were to take some type of military action, would the president go to Congress to seek war authority?
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals. I gave you the statement from the president. He'll make a decision within 2 weeks.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline.
Mary and then Elizabeth.
Two questions, one on Iran and then the second on something Jasmine Crockett said this morning. So given that we know the Iranian government did order an operative to assassinate the president, is there concern that Iran might respond with non-traditional military ways to some kind of strike on Iran, such as another assassination attempt? And has the Department of Justice looked into this last attempt on the president's life?
I believe Secret Service and the FBI have looked into the 2 assassination attempts that took place against the president, both of which were sad days in our nation's history. So I would defer you to the Department of Justice on where those investigations stand. But as for your question regarding Iranian retaliation, I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals again, but I can assure the American public and the world that this administration is prepared and ready to defend American interests and assets, not just in the region, but here on our homeland as well.
Thank you. And then really quick on Jasmine Crockett, she said, I believe, that Trump supporters are mentally ill before calling for bipartisan support against the president. Can you respond to that, especially considering she's a rising star in the Democrat Party right now?
She is a rising star. It's quite something to behold, actually. I hope that she continues to be a rising star for the Republican Party, at least. I think it's incredibly derogatory to accuse nearly 80 million Americans of mental illness. The last time I checked, Jasmine Crockett couldn't dream of winning such a majority of the public as President Trump did. And the America First movement, which President Trump has built, is filled of hardworking patriots, the forgotten men and women, business owners, law enforcement officers, nurses and teachers, and middle America, as we all know, from where you all grew up, outside of this beltway. That's who makes up this president's movement. And Jasmine Crockett should go to a Trump rally sometime and she can see it for herself. Jennifer.
One on North Korea and one on China. On North Korea, they launched some rockets into the ocean today. What does the White House make of that? Do you read any meaning into that timing of that launch? And then on China, do you have any reaction to Xi Jinping's offer of intervening in Iran diplomatically? And are you seeing any signs that China would get involved militarily to support Iran?
I don't believe we're seeing any signs of that at this moment in time. As for Xi Jinping's offer, I will leave it to the president to respond to that himself. As for your question about North Korea, we are monitoring the situation. The Trump administration is in close contact with our new South Korean counterparts as we work together to deter our adversaries and preserve a free and open Indo-Pacific. And no matter where, our adversaries and our allies alike know that President Trump will not tolerate threats against our interests on his watch, even as he works to resolve the wars that he inherited.
Question.
Alex, go ahead, and then I'll come to you.
Thank you. Is the president concerned about the economy if farms and hotels, et cetera, struggle to find workers?
The president's always concerned about the economy. That's on his mind every day. He wakes up, he checks the markets, he checks wage growth. As I pointed out, it's a record high today for middle class and American workers. So the president's always wanting to ensure that we have a strong and robust economy for the American people and worker, and we do. As for the specific concerns regarding jobs, look, the president has made it very clear we need to remove public safety threats from the interior of our country, and that remains the focus and the priority of this administration when it comes to deportations, no matter where somebody works. If they're an illegal alien rapist or murderer that was allowed into this country in the past 4 years by this administration, the American people want those types of criminals to be deported from our country, and that's what the president is backing ICE to do.
Thanks. There was an apparent skirmish between the Chinese and the Philippines in the South China Sea. Just curious if you had any reaction to that, and if the steps you're taking towards the Middle East right now are reducing your capacity to deal with that situation.
I believe that happened as I was preparing and coming out here, so we'll get you a response to that. Certainly we have one, and our teams are always monitoring situations all around the globe.
Okay, and then one more just on Iran. Just over the past 24 hours, we've seen some Israeli strikes on Natanz, Isfahan, and Kondab nuclear facilities. Is there any assessment just of how effective or what the result of those strikes will be?
What I can share is that the IDF and Israel, I think, have exceeded a lot of people's expectations in their ability to really hinder Iran's nuclear facilities, but also they've taken out key people in the Iranian regime's leadership as well. So this is something, of course, we are monitoring and watching every day, and the president was just in an intelligence briefing. He continues to be briefed by his National Security Council, and he will throughout the duration of this war and conflict. And he also remains in constant communication with our Israeli counterparts, most notably Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Kristen.
Thank you, Caroline. We have heard from a number of U.S. officials who say that Iran doesn't want to make a deal, that they are just stringing the United States along. What is to say that they are not going to continue to do so if we if we continue to give them extensions, now 2 weeks before 60 days?
Look, Iran is in a very weak and vulnerable position because of the strikes and the attacks from Israel. And with respect to the president's statement, I shared that with all of you. And he has been very direct and clear. Iran can and should make a deal. We sent a deal to them that was practical, that was realistic, or they will face grave consequences.
Why is Steve Witkoff not participating in the talks this week?
I can ask Mr. Witkoff why he is not.
Thanks, Caroline. Does the president object if Israel attempts its own operation against Fordo in the next 2 weeks?
I won't decide that for the president, nor will I share that here. I'll let him speak to that.
And then just another one. Iran is apparently warning Europeans that if struck by the U.S., it may withdraw from the nuclear proliferation treaty. That would result in throwing out inspectors and taking the program dark. What does the president think of the value of having Iran as a full signatory of that treaty?
Well, that's reckless rhetoric, but I understand the Europeans are meeting with the Iranians tomorrow, so we'll see how that meeting goes.
Just one more on Juneteenth. Does the
Nikki.
president plan to commemorate the holiday today or make any comment on it?
I'm not tracking his signature on a proclamation today. I know this is a federal holiday. I want to thank all of you for showing up to work. We are certainly here. We're working 24/7 right now. Nikki, go ahead.
Actually, that was my question. Will he plan to mark Juneteenth in any way, either today or with an event later on, maybe next week?
Sure. I just answered that question for you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Caroline. The fact that this president is giving some time and space for diplomacy, another 2 weeks, does it mean that the president is trying his best to avoid a direct conflict with Iran?
I think the president has made it clear he always wants to pursue diplomacy, but believe me, the president is unafraid to use strength if necessary. And Iran and the entire world should know that the United States military is the strongest and most lethal fighting force in the world, and we have capabilities that no other country on this planet possesses. Owen.
Caroline, good afternoon. The Supreme Court, as you know, has upheld Tennessee's ban on transgender medical procedures for minors, puberty blockers, hormone therapy, etc. The White House reaction to that, please.
It's a huge victory for America's children, and it's obviously something this administration believes strongly in, that young minor children should not be allowed to be subjected to chemical castration and mutilation. The president himself has taken very strong orders, or has signed very strong executive orders on this, and we are grateful for Tennessee's efforts to protect our children, and we are grateful the Supreme Court ruled on the side of the law, but also on the side of protecting America's innocent children. Elizabeth, go ahead. Sorry, I skipped you earlier.
Okay, thank you so much. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced new vetting procedures on student visas. Will this serve as a model for vetting other foreign visas?
For all foreign visas, yes. As you know, the president signed an executive order, I think it was one of the first he signed in the first week, to strengthen our vetting requirements and our vetting system here in the United States for all visas. He directed the Secretary of State to do that. There was a pause in some of that vetting, as you all know, recently, especially with respect to students from some certain countries. But the vetting has continued, and it's stronger than ever before. As for specifics on how the vetting process has changed, I would defer you to the Department of State. As you know, they're in charge of things like that.
Thank you. To what extent is this 2-week delay with Iran the result of interventions by the likes of Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or the entreaties of European leaders who want a de-escalation?
Look, the president hears all voices across the country, and he makes decisions based on his instincts. And he has always said diplomacy is his first option.
And is he still planning to attend the NATO summit next week?
He is, yes. We will be departing from Washington on Monday morning, and hopefully we'll see some of you there. Kayla.
Thanks, Caroline. Oil prices have been spiking over the last week. Is the president watching the oil market, and is that factoring into his decision-making in the Middle East?
Again, as I said to, I think, Alex's question previously, the president is always watching, and this administration is doing more than any in history to bring oil prices and gas prices here at home down for the American public. They have been plummeting since President Trump's inauguration because of the executive action and the federal action this administration has taken on the home front. But yes, of course, he's paying attention and monitoring that. But as for whether it's weighing into his decision, there's a number of factors that, of course, are, and as I said, he will make that decision in the next 2 weeks. Can't reiterate that enough. Ouija.
Caroline, thank you. With regard to a potential deal, Iran has said it.
Shout out to the GOAT. One more time. Shout out to the GOAT. The GOAT, Dr. Luke. Thank you for the super chat one more time. He says, the press come from Washington, D.C., and most share no opinions with the rest of us. That is very insightful, Dr. Luke. One more time, Dr. Luke says the press comes from Washington, D.C., and most share no opinion with the rest of the world. Well, the rest of us. Shout out to the GOAT.
Will not negotiate under duress. Does the president believe there should be a ceasefire in these next 2 weeks as the U.S. tries to broker a deal?
That's not what he said in the statement he dictated to me, so I won't get ahead of the president or add anything additional to the statement that he gave me the liberty to share with all of you.
And then just to follow up on how close Iran is to a nuclear weapon, can you clarify when the president said a few weeks away, did he mean obtaining enough enriched uranium to start building a weapon, or did he mean Iran is a few weeks away from completing the production of a weapon?
I'm glad you asked that, Weija. It's an important question, and it's one, frankly, the media has been getting wrong. Let's be very clear. Iran has all that it needs to achieve a nuclear weapon. All they need is a decision from the supreme leader to do that, and it would take a couple of weeks to complete the production of that weapon, which would, of course, pose an existential threat not just to Israel, but to the United States and to the entire world. And that is something that the entire world, including countries like Russia, is in agreement with, that Iran should not and cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. And that's why the president believes that, and he's believed that, again, not just his political career, but frankly, his entire life.
So it
Michael.
sounds like it's the former, just to be clear. That
Correct.
they have the components. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Michael.
Caroline, as we look forward to the NATO summit next week, Spain right now is threatening not to oblige the president's request for all NATO countries to spend at least 5% of their GDP. Does the president take issue with this, with Spain right now?
I didn't see Spain's comments. I'll make sure the president sees them, and I can assure you he wants to see all European countries pay their fair share and meet that 5% threshold. It's only fair considering the American taxpayers have given a significant chunk of money to the tune of billions of dollars to support our mutual interests and our assured defense. So I will let him speak to that, but he's made his priorities for our European allies quite clear, including Spain.
Thank you, Caroline. One last question. When it comes to the president's position on foreign policy in general, is there a phrase that the White House has coined? Is there a Trump doctrine? Does the president like to talk about this? Anyone here in the White House talking about this? And if so, if there is something akin to a Trump doctrine, how would you define it?
America first, always. And with that, I think I'll leave you. I know there's a lot of news in the world right now. As you know, our team is always here to answer your questions, and the president, I am sure, will take more questions from you guys at some point this week, as he always does in the effort of transparency. I appreciate your being here on a federal holiday, and we'll see you later. Thank you.
The fact that the commander-in-chief, the 45th, now the 47th president of the United States, is giving Iran 2 weeks of diplomacy before he makes the final decision, that tells you this guy actually wants peace. But I don't know what liberals are talking about. And he's not trying to isolate the United States, because if he was trying to isolate the United States, he would not help our ally, which is Israel. So with the pressure is on right now, and is still giving Iran, that is screaming, shouting death to the United States, 2 more weeks of diplomacy. Come on, y'all. This guy is a president of peace, but let's go.
Let's get some quick reaction from Emily on the Karen Reed verdict.
All right, guys, this was a textbook illustration of how to nail it the second time around. So essentially, defense came in swinging because it was a second trial, right? Like surgery. And here's what they did. They targeted reasonable doubt through all of that missing text messages, all of the digital evidence that was missing. They came in and said, look, we are turning the spoliation of evidence into something not right here. And that's the thing. The jurors didn't need to believe that there was this big orchestrated effort or event. They just needed to believe that something wasn't right with all of those law enforcement officers that were concealing text, missing text, destroying text, per the defense, right? And they used reverse narrative to their benefit. So they painted the defendant saying she's the patsy. She's the one that's getting framed here, right? Victim over and over again. John O'Keefe be damned, essentially. And then they repeated undermining the chain of custody and the scene integrity. Why was his body moved? Look, this is asking so many questions that they didn't have answers to. And they didn't present them as just sloppy mistakes. They presented them as a sort of intentional concealment of evidence. And then finally, they weaponized the arrogance that they framed for all of those protesters that you saw that raised $1 million on her behalf, that hung on every word of the documentary, that traveled by states to watch this, right? They said, look at this. These guys think they're pulling one over on all of you. And that's why they nailed it.
Emily,
so she's their OJ.
Basically.
All right.
And she might have been innocent.
Or that, too.
She might have been innocent.
And Gutfeld will have the whole hour tonight on the Karen Reed trial, so stay tuned.
Live. No,
all right, thank you, guys. But let's talk about the big story we're following here. President Trump still mulling a U.S. military strike on Iran's nuclear sites, but teased he's open to meeting with the mullahs at the White House.
I have a plan for everything, but we'll see what happens. Got a ways to go. They should have made the deal. I had a great deal for them. They decided not to do it, and now they wish they did it. And they want to meet, but it's a little late to meet. I don't want to get involved either, but I've been saying for 20 years, maybe longer, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've been saying it for a long time. You may have to fight, and maybe it'll end, very quickly. But there's no way that you can allow, whether you have to fight or not, you can allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, because the entire world will blow up. I'm not going to let that happen.
Katie, have you ever seen a president keep his options so open for so long?
He is keeping options open, but the one thing he's made very clear throughout all of this is that the Iranian nuclear program is going away. It is not staying. He said today that it's going to either go away by us bombing it when they surrender or bombing it if they don't surrender. So this program is going away. It's just a matter of how they decide to do this. The timeline is that the Israelis say if the U.S. were to get involved with the bombing campaign, they could be done with this in a week, which the president has said he wants things to be done quickly. He doesn't want these things to drag out. He's consistent with that. He has a track record in his first term of doing these strikes that are very significant, targeted, and getting out of the way. Soleimani, he did this with the Houthis. He did this with ISIS. There's no reason to stick around and wait it out. So he is in another meeting today with his national security team, and all options are on the table. But if you listen to what he's saying, it's very clear that this is going in the direction of Iran's nuclear program is going away for the better of the United States of America and for the region. And I think it's very interesting that you've heard a lot about, well, we don't want this to devolve into a broader war in the region. The region's not saying anything. The Saudis are happy with this. The Jordanians are happy with this. The UAE is happy with this. And if you look at the images that you see of these people sending in video from Lebanon, from Jordan, from UAE, seeing these missiles flying through the sky, the only people sending those are the Iranians, and they don't want them to be the target next. So the program's going away. It's just a matter of when and how.
Harold, does the president have the support of the Democrats in the Senate and in Congress for a strike against this nuclear facility?
I hope so. But let me dial back, because I think your question is the right one. I would broaden it out. I think, to Katie's point, it's good to be back around the table with everybody. I think the question that the president, who's grappling with the most consequential decision that he's ever had to make, I think, in his life, certainly as president the first term and certainly up to this point, and I can't imagine a more consequential one for the next 3 years. I think the president's asking the question, what if we don't act? In light of all that the Israelis have done and really softening and diminishing the military power, the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, their ability to launch rockets at Israel and, for that matter, anywhere in the region. And they've done a lot. The president took an oath of office, everyone does, to protect and defend the Constitution and the country, regardless of whom the president is. Not your campaign dogma, not your campaign platform, not your rally speeches. And this is where it gets really tough. Two, I hope the president's applying the Powell Doctrine to this, Jesse, which the late Secretary of Defense and late Joint Chiefs of Staff asked a couple of questions. He asked, do we have a vital security interest? We do. They say death to America. Do we have a clear, attainable objective? Katie laid it out well. I think the president has laid it out. We want to undermine and neutralize this nuclear capacity of theirs and their ability to launch missiles. Three, do we have an exit strategy, and have we considered the consequences of what may happen? I'm confident the president and his team are doing that, and this gets to the last point. Are the American people in support, which is what your question contemplates, not just Democrats? It appears as we sit here tonight, the president's facing more opposition from Republicans and perhaps some in the MAGA community than he is anywhere else. I hope if the president decides to do something, whatever that might be, and I support him, that he comes before the country at the appropriate time and lays out for us why he's doing it, what we're doing, and how we're going to get out of it. And finally, the Israelis have done a lot. If they had not done all they have done up to this point, I may not be as in favor of going after the nuclear facility as I am. What they've done over the last year, particularly the last 6 months, has been nothing short of astonishing. So whatever the president decides to do, I hope the country supports him, but he's going to have to lay out clearly, convincingly, and forcefully why we're doing it.
Do you believe, Emily, the president's done a good job explaining to the American people the stakes?
Well, I think he's done a good job explaining to the American people that he's protecting American interests. And he's staying true to why we voted for him, which was peace through strength, with the end result of including not ditching our allies and always holding American interests first. And that's why, to those saying that it's not America first, to not even take out Fordow, look, number one, it removes a direct, time-sensitive threat to the U.S. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than the trickle sort of policy that Biden had. Oh, here's a little bit of material support over years and years, or the wait and see approach of him and the Dems, which includes, by the way, the priceless toll of the 603 Americans that have died at the hands of the Islamic regime. And for those worried about mission creep, that's what this would stop, right? This is strength without spread. And the biggest result is deterrence. Mess with the bull, you get the horns. That's what message he's been clear on, and that's why people voted for him. And side note, I have many friends in Tel Aviv right now. Katie, I know you do too. One of them, a missile hit the building 80 feet away from his apartment while he was in the shelter. It destroyed the entire block. Somehow his apartment was okay because it was protected by the buildings. He said, we're experiencing what we've never experienced before. But he said, but it's necessary to finish the job and destroy the nuclear facilities in Iran. That is someone that understands the message, understands patriotism, and understands an existential crisis that they're facing.
How do you see it, Greg?
Many different ways, Jesse. I'm glad you asked. First of all, I'm always surprised that people that are so against trade wars are more open to real wars. Isn't that? Don't you find that kind of like like the people that are against trade wars? They always talk about the blowback of a trade war. We talk about it forever. But with real wars, we don't. We don't even know what's next after we decide to do this. And we often don't. That's why we ended up with Iraq and Afghanistan. There is a lot of blowback. At least with trade wars, you can turn off the spigot. You can go back in time and stop it. About the America First thing, that was why Trump was elected. But it's not like he isn't being America First already. It's like been 150 days. We've seen, look at the border. No crossings, no releases. Workers' wages are up. Pared down regulations, increased industry, redefining military readiness and priorities. So he didn't just walk in and say, you know what I'm going to do first? Bomb the goats out of Iran. So the idea, this is what bugs me about the people that are screaming about Trump being hawkish. The idea that he somehow fell under the spell of Lindsey Graham, it's divorced from context. The guy is doing America First every single day. So maybe this might not be a contradiction. In his mind, it might logically make sense in the Trump universe. But that's only if Iran is a true threat. And that's where the question is. In a way, Iran is like an unstable teenager who posts online about wanting to shoot up a school. When do you take their threats and capabilities seriously? Like, do you know what his capabilities are? Does this kid have guns at home? We don't know. So you have to weigh the costs, is like what Harold said, that the cost of inaction is an action. It's an action. So America First has two lanes. America First, and what are the options in the Middle East that are best for American interests? So they kind of cross. And then going back to what you said when you asked Katie, we elected Trump for his instincts and his gut instinct. And, maybe he knows a way to defend our staunchest ally without sacrificing our sons. And he doesn't do things that he thinks will end badly. That's one thing we know. He jumps in when he sees a path and I think he senses Israel has done the work. And I think that's another thing that he respects Israel for, is that they always do the work. He likes winners. And I think he sees this event, Israel, as a winning bet.
I think you're right. But in fairness, I think you're right. Without Israel having done all the work up to this point, I think a lot of people would not be as open-minded to this. And remember, they support Hamas. Hezbollah and the Houthis, they have done, it's not just a kid at home putting stuff up on social media. They have done, not only on social media, they've acted on some of it through their proxies. So
yeah, no,
it's
it was a rough analogy, Harold.
Yeah.
It wasn't the real thing.
Don't nitpick the analogies,
My
Harold.
goodness.
Come on.
I'm done here.
Let me write that down.
I have things to do.
And you can argue you can take Israel completely out of it, and it's about U.S. interests. Not
I want to make an analogy about Karen Reed.
Okay, and Greg will have Karen Reed the whole hour. Again, no commercials, the whole hour.
Yeah.
Up next.
Don't go.
Gutfeld is way too funny, yo. Jesse, on the other hand, he's funny, but he makes a lot of sense. Gutfeld makes a lot of sense as well. But Jesse's just, his sense of humor is just out of this world. The 5, ladies and gentlemen.
Anti-ICE agitators who've been burning Wamos, you're about to get terminated. Arnold Schwarzenegger not taking the bait on The View after...
Have you guys seen this right here? Arnold destroyed, basically, the liberals. Let's watch this, man. Y'all watch this.
Joy Behar and the ladies tried to get him to endorse the anti-ICE insanity that's been sweeping liberal cities. Watch.
As an immigrant yourself, you are an immigrant. You're an immigrant in this country. Yeah. Did you have a visceral reaction to what they're doing, what ICE is doing, when you see the videos of it?
I'm so happy to see firsthand that this is the greatest country in the world, and this is the land of opportunity. But the key thing also is at the same time that we got to do things legal. That is the important thing. When you come to America, you're a guest. And you have to behave like a guest. You have a responsibility as an immigrant to give back to America.
Greg, you know what I loved about that? This is like lib kryptonite, which is when you talk about a lived experience plus common sense.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm done.
Good. Let's be honest. The only reason why Arnold went on The View was to look skinny. Now, but he is voicing the damage that the liberals' embrace of illegal immigration has done to legal immigration. Yeah. How does it feel to have waited in line to get into Disneyland when everybody else just jumped the fence, got in for free, and they're peeing in the teacups? Because that's what he's talking about. If I hear another hack say, we're a nation of immigrants during this process, I'm going to deport their ass with my foot. You can't say that while you're destroying the process of legal immigration. If you believe that immigration is the foundation of this country, then you should protect the process with all your might. That's what, because what you're seeing right now is the consequence of letting that go away. The biggest harm the Democrats have done is they contaminated the system by defying the system. You've heard the phrase, this is why you can't have nice things. Think about so many nice things that we can't have because of liberalism. One of them is legal immigration, because they destroyed that. But think about women's sports. That was nice for a while. Peaceful protests. That was nice. Can't have that anymore. Safety nets. Safety nets. You know, for people that needed it, they exploited that. Look at our entertainment when it went woke. Look at religion. They put folk guitar in Catholic Mass. Worst thing that could ever happen. Our politics is destroyed. Our comedy got destroyed. Now I'm rebuilding it. Thank you. Sanctuary cities were the poison pill that killed legal immigration. We're dealing with it now.
Safety nuts are my favorite.
Safety nuts?
All right, Jesse, here's what I loved about it also is that it's a perfect illustration of what happens when you try to debate or just have a conversation with a lib, which is that they interrupt you. So the person, the thing to his right kept verbally interrupting, and the one to his left kept touching him, which, by the way, if you touch me, I will punch you. So that they couldn't even let him get his answer out before trying to jump in and just wipe it away.
You're having a great show already. I love what you're putting out there. Arnold was right. So an illegal immigrant is like an uninvited guest at a party. Right? So
you know that.
You say you're having a party, and people who weren't invited show up to the party. As long as they're hanging out, having a good time, not messing with anybody, they can stay. And that's pretty much the American policy towards illegal aliens. But if you roll up to the party and crash into the pillar and then just roofie the bartender and then slap the host in the face, you're going to call the cops right away. Democrats are like the people at the party that like hide this guy in the basement, and then when the cops show up, they fight the cops. Now, Democrats would never do that in their own lives. there's such a wide gap between the way Democrats behave in their personal life and the way they behave in their public life. Democrats in their private lives don't harbor fugitives. They don't yell Gestapo at police officers. They don't do any of that stuff. But for some reason, in their public life, they're animals. It's like, I can't never say anything. Let's just say Joy Behar invites me over for cocktails and hors d'oeuvres.
Oh, God.
I go over to the house. It's civilized.
No, you
We're having a great time. If a fire starts, she doesn't say, no, we're just going to let it burn. She calls someone immediately, and we put out the fire. I'm sure when she found out Waters was coming over for hors d'oeuvres, she went shopping. So she's in line at the grocery store. 12 people cut Joy in line at the grocery store, and she doesn't say anything? She's going to yell, hey, get the hell back in line. I've been waiting here. So Democrats, the only other people they're like are like actors. Because actors, their private life and their public life, completely different. They'll go on set, act like a totally different person, leave the set, they're back to themselves. Same thing with Democrats. They're just performers. That's all they're doing.
Wow. And bad at it. Harold, here's the other thing. That was a perfect contrast between the current toxic, ineffective, inept governor of California and the prior one that actually had common sense. I say this as a Californian because and you too, because our state went to ruin under Gavin Newsom.
So I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is like, and I like him, is like a lot of foreigners and immigrants who come to our country who love the freedom and opportunity that our country offers. He came with a great work ethic, a lot of grit, obviously a lot of talent that he continued to harness while he was here. And he was offered a path to citizenship, to both of you all's points, that he pursued. And thankfully, he met all the requirements, and we're better off for him. Our country's better off for him, for having him in our country and having him as an American. I hope at some point we do two things again. Because when he came, Emily, the path to citizenship was far more defined than it is today. We've not reformed this process in a really long time, not since Ronald Reagan was president. And I hope we reform it again so we can ensure we get the very best like him coming to our country, and we find ways to export the very worst. Because there's no question over the last few years, we've had an influx of people, some who should be on the path to citizenship and many whom should not. I happen to allocate a little responsibility to, because I served in Congress, Republicans and Democrats alike were responsible for not addressing this. But I don't at all don't own up to the fact that over the last 4 years under the past president, we had an enormous influx of people who should not have been here, And I'm hopeful that President Trump and Mr. Holman will continue down the path of kicking out the worst first.
Katie,
I just love that Joy starts with the assumption. Oh, you're an immigrant, right? So you totally agree with what we're saying about this issue, which of course is her longstanding position, which is one that Democrats have had, which is the conflation and a disrespect between immigration legally and illegal immigration. And for someone like him to sit there and listen and assume that he agrees with her on this when you're watching riots breaking out all over the place, where you're watching foreign flags being flown around as cars are burning. I mean, how offensive would it be if you're someone who came here legally and you're assuming that you're all in the same boat? Legal immigrants come here and have for many, many years, since the beginning of the country, really, and said, what can I do to make this country better? How can I be worthy of the people who came before me? How can I be a positive, an adding to what we can do for the future? And if I have children or grandchildren, what can they then do to help their country? Illegal immigrants come here, and the first thing they do is break the law. It is illegal to come here. It's legal to come here without permission. And then they come in and they want benefits. They want you as a legal immigrant or as a citizen to pay for their health care, to pay for their housing, to get put up in a hotel room in New York, to get a food card, and the list goes on. And so there has always been a difference between legal and illegal immigration, and the left has purposely conflated them for the sake of trying to call the right bigots for daring to want some kind of system where things are in order and they are in favor of people who follow the law and want to be a positive for the country, not a drag, by forcing citizens to deal with the issues that come with legal immigration, whether it's crime or costs in terms of local budgets.
That's right. Oh, go ahead.
Did you know what Arnold said when he left The View?
What?
I won't be back.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into the live show. Okay, so the United States Embassy in Israel is evacuating Americans because Trump weighs in strike on Iran, but there's been a 2 weeks diplomacy going on as well. But check this out.
We are back with a Fox News alert. President Trump is set to receive an intelligence briefing this morning as the violence in the Middle East continues to worsen. Lucas Tomlinson is live in Washington with the very latest. Hi, Lucas.
Well, good early morning, Carly. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem remains closed through Friday as President Trump continues to weigh whether or not to launch airstrikes against Iran. Here's the president yesterday.
They should have made the deal. I had a great deal for them. They should have made that deal. 60 days we talked about it, and in the end they decided not to do it, and now they wish they did it. And they want to meet, but it's a little late to meet, but they want to meet, and they want to come to the White House. They'll even come to the White House, so we'll see. I may do that.
Now, the Iranians rejected that, saying they will not be coming to Washington's mission to the UN, posting no Iranian official has ever asked to grovel at the gates of the White House. The only thing more despicable than his lies is his cowardly threat to take out Iran's supreme leader. Iran does not negotiate under duress, shall not accept peace under duress. And minutes ago, the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem posted a new message urging U.S. government employees and family members in Israel to continue sheltering in place after the largest hospital in the country was hit by an Iranian ballistic missile. Yesterday, Trump's ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, posting on X, urgent notice. American citizens wanting to leave Israel. U.S. Embassy in Israel is working on evacuation flights and cruise ship departures. And while President Trump mulls whether to strike Iran, U.S. military assets continue to pour into the Middle East. The Israelis also have a ground option for destroying Fordo, Iran's massive nuclear weapons complex, using elite commandos from Unit 5101 Shaldag. Carly?
Important to point out there. Lucas Tomlinson live for us. Lucas, thank you. Israel's special envoy for combating anti-Semitism, Michal Kotler-Wunsch, joins me now, and thank you so much for doing just that. According to the Wall Street Journal, President Trump has approved an attack plan for Iran, but is holding off to see if Tehran will abandon their nuclear program. So what are the chances, in your estimation, of Iran voluntarily giving it up at this point?
So thank you, Carly, for having me on. And I would say the chances are zero voluntarily giving up. And we have seen systematically this genocidal Islamic regime in Iran utilize billions of its resources, fueled by the very same anti-Semitism that saw the annihilation of Jews in a final solution before their eyes, even as the Allies were nearing. That is what we are experiencing now. As you mentioned, the largest hospital in Israel's south was targeted deliberately. And as Iran continues to target civilians, children, people sleeping in their beds, and as we said, a hospital this morning that, of course, services and employs Arabs and Jews side by side, we know that the only mission that they have continues to be not just the annihilation of the state of Israel, the small devil, but the big devil, the destruction of the United States and our shared civilization.
A notable comment from President Trump yesterday on the role Russia is playing in all of this. Listen here.
And I spoke to him yesterday, and I said, he actually offered to help mediate. I said, do me a favor. Mediate your own. Let's mediate Russia first, okay? I said, Vladimir, let's mediate Russia first. You can worry about this later.
Point taken. And also, a Telegraph is reporting that China reportedly sent mystery transport planes to Iran, and these planes often carry military weapons. So will Russia and China play a role in this? And if so, what will it be?
Look, Carly, we're at this moment where an axis of evil, and you have mentioned many of its partners in this 2025 axis of evil that is being emboldened by the lack of moral clarity of over the past more than 20 months of a raging war waged and launched on the October 7th massacre attack of barbarism on civilization. That axis of evil and all of its proxies that they have been placed around the world begins with what we see as a showdown, as the front lines, if you will, taking place right now as we speak with this attack on the state of Israel. But as I said, and as anti-Semitism, a thousands of year-old hate teaches, what begins with the Jews, and in this case, the Jew among nations, that is the state of Israel, never ends with the Jews. And so the understanding that it is that lethal anti-Semitism that we have seen a tsunami of in the past almost 21 months since that October 7th massacre, that continues raging and fueling and actually binding together that axis of evil that you have mentioned, that peddle and continue to spread blood libel that actually incites and fuels cold-blooded murder, including in Washington, including in Boulder, Colorado, is something that we all have to be paying attention to as this war of barbarism and civilization continues.
Yeah, and you mentioned Boulder, Colorado. The people there were participating in an event to raise awareness for the hostages in Gaza. And you can't forget them. How do these missile attacks between Iran and Israel right now impact their situation, still being held hostage?
Carly, the devastation of thinking that there are 53 human beings languishing in the terror tunnels and dungeons, that Hamas, but one genocidal terror proxy of that fire ring that an Islamic regime in Iran built over decades, fueling with weapons, with systems, and with the funds for an underground terror tunnel system longer than the New York subway system, is unbearably heartbreaking. The knowledge for these families, and I have to be very clear, that the violation of law and morality in which their continued holding has been sort of received with international silence, false moral equivalency, and impunity is being, in many ways, what has emboldened this stage of the war to escalate. And our heartache and our heartbreak cannot be complete until, of course, the return of those 53, those who are alive to their families, and those who are dead for burial in Israel.
We will continue to keep them in our prayers as President Trump says all options remain on the table on how to respond to Iran, and a final decision of his has yet.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's pray for peace for sure, because we want peace, but we got to see what's going on in the Middle East.
Fox News Alert, #1 story in the world right now. Israel releasing footage of an airstrike on an Iranian heavy water reactor in Arak, A-R-A-K. The latest attack on Iran's nuclear program, sending massive plumes of smoke into the air.
And smoke seen over southern Israel after Iran carried out a direct strike on a hospital. A series of strikes by Tehran, injuring at least 89 people in and around Tel Aviv.
So let's go right to Mike Tobin. He is live in Israel at the scene of one of those Iranian strikes. Mike?
Exactly, Ainsley. This is Ramat Gan, where the cleanup is underway right now. Ramat Gan is on the east side of Tel Aviv. And as I step out of the shot, I can give you an idea of just how powerful the warhead was on that missile as it came through. The damage here stretches over several blocks. You've got a lot of apartment buildings, businesses, retail that are in here. The balconies are destroyed. Windows are broken out for blocks around the impact zone. And one of the things you might see, a lot of the trash is being pushed out of the high rise right now, so you might see some debris coming down. Also, Holon on the south side of Tel Aviv. That's an older residential area. That took a direct hit. And a hospital called Soroka in the southern part of Israel was hit. When you talk about the dozens of people who were injured, most of those injuries are light. And spoke with a paramedic out here this morning that says the reason you don't have more serious injuries is simply because the Israeli people are listening to those sirens.
The population is highly committed to the security and safety here, and we can see that even from rockets like this one, very little or few casualties because people are turning to the shelters and staying safe when the alarm sounds.
Following the ballistic missile attack, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to X and posted, "We, meaning Israel, will exact a price from the tyrants in Iran." What did he mean by that? Israeli fighter jets were active over Iran today. They hit a nuclear weapons development facility in the town of Natanz, but also hit an inactive heavy water reactor in the town of Arak. So it's still very active scene over Iran, and the Israelis say they have air superiority, so the Israeli fighter jets can pretty much pick off targets at will. Guys, back to you.
You know, Mike, we're just talking. What if people have a job? Like if Brian were doing radio, would you be able to do that in one of the bunkers? Because you're interrupted in the middle of your day, and right now it's constant.
Well, you often see guys who will pick up and move to the bunkers in the middle of a live broadcast, and you see that with the local television as well. As far as people working here in this business / residential area, the one thing we see them bringing out, or two things we see them bringing out, is they're allowed one at a time back into their offices and apartment buildings, or their briefcases and the CPUs from their personal computers.
So life still goes on.
Mike, you were showing us in the building behind you in talking about specifically the warhead and the damage that it did. We've seen as each day goes by, it seems like the Iranians have fired fewer missiles, but are they using stronger warheads? Is that sort of a thing that's happening there?
Well, I think in this stage of the conflict, ever since Operation Rising Lion started, they went into their arsenal and they got things like their Fajr rockets, which are considerably more powerful than the Katyusha rockets that we saw come out of South Lebanon, and dramatically more powerful than the Qassam rockets, which are made in machine shops in the Gaza Strip.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
I think it says everything about Israel and about Iran. Israel is fighting to remove the nuclear and missile threat aimed at our annihilation. We're targeting military sites. We're targeting nuclear sites. We're targeting missile sites. They're targeting a hospital. In this hospital, there are patients who are immobile. They can't even move. Right next to it is a children's ward, a baby's ward, infants. They target it.
Fox News alert now. There you saw it moments ago. The Prime Minister Netanyahu visiting the site of a bombed-out hospital, warning Iran's supreme leader, you cannot continue to exist. Wow. After overnight missile strikes killed innocent civilians and those wounded, or over 80. Our next guest knows all about the Mideast war and terror. Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Ken Tobo joins us. He led 6 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan and joins us now. Your reaction to what the Prime Minister just said, Ken, about, you know what, this guy can't continue to exist.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty good example of the fact that the Iranians use basically indiscriminate weapons, both missiles, terrorism, and other effects that are generally directed against civilian populations and frankly, targets that Western militaries would not target. And I think what you see with the Israeli approach is a very precise campaign and to try and limit collateral damage, but to have effect on the nuclear program.
So, General, when people say, this is not our fight, America doesn't have a fight with Iran, this is Israel's problem, do you feel differently?
Yeah, I'm from that generation that has watched Iranians fight against U.S. and U.S. interests really since 1979 when they took our embassy. They've bombed embassies, Khobar towers, through Lebanese Hezbollah, one of their terrorist groups that they sponsor and fund. They've executed attacks on Americans really worldwide. And of course, during the Iraq War, they were a significant threat to us on the ground, and through their explosively formed penetrators that they were providing to the Shia militias, were killing Americans in large numbers.
You said, we dropped the bunker busters, they'll do the job in Fordo. The reaction. If you were on the ground in Iraq, in Syria, in Bahrain, our base in Bahrain, or Qatar, where do you think we'd be most vulnerable if they wanted to react? Should it be clear that we dropped the bunker busters on Fordo?
I am quite sure that our military commanders globally are on alert and preparing the capability to defend our troops. I think when you look at the Middle East, the Iranian capability is largely ballistic missiles, short, medium, and long range. And so I am sure that all those bases are worried about their air defenses and paying close attention to the news.
It's amazing. Their axis of resistance has been very quiet because they know the people that have been supplying them are getting their head kicked in. This is a big day, the 73rd anniversary, the birthday of the Green Beret. What is the Green Beret? People like you, how have you contributed to our armed forces?
Yeah, I think the Green Berets, the U.S. Army Special Forces, are really a unique portion of our military capability, really the only organization in the U.S. military that's solely focused on working with indigenous partners, such as resistance elements and other partners, primarily to overthrow occupying powers or enemy adversary regime. So kind of think, World War II, think folks parachuting into France to help the French resistance overthrow the Nazi regime. And that is the prime focus of Green Berets. Obviously, we do other things when called to, like help governments fight their own internal stability problems. But that was the reason for the creation of the Green Berets in 1952.
Now needed more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the world situation, we're in a competition with adversaries, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and a lot of that competition is what we call the gray zone. It's below the threshold of conventional war. It's about creating influence with partners, foreign partners and allies.
You better watch, General. If you stay in such great shape, they're going to bring you right back in. Lieutenant General Ken Tovo, happy birthday to you, Green Beret. Thanks for all you do, and thanks for your expertise here.
Oh, all right. Here we go.
The southern border is a ghost town. Every bad hombre in the third world knows we're not spread eagle anymore. They love Joe, and his borders are Kamala. She was never really interested in building a wall. She just wanted to find root causes.
We want to work with you to address both the acute causes as well as the root causes. We are focused on addressing both the acute factors and the root causes. Not only the root causes, but the acute causes. To look at the root causes and the acute causes. My trip to Guatemala and Mexico was about addressing the root causes. Addressing the root causes of irregular migration.
She's just such a robot. She says the same thing over and over again and actually does nothing. Words, no action.
For the past 3 years, I have led our administration's efforts to address the root causes of migration.
And we're learning now that she did what Joe did and tried to pass that work off onto someone else. Using USAID, they wrote up a contract worth up to $800 million for consultants to find the root causes for them. But here's the problem. Walter Barnes III, the man who founded one of these companies that got the cash, was a known con man. He just pled guilty to a decade-long USAID bribery scheme. And the government knew he was shady for years, even before they gave him all the money. Now, in 2023, the USAID Inspector General said Barnes lacked honesty and integrity. But on the same day, he was awarded an $800 million contract. They had good reason to be suspicious. Over the years, Barnes secured big money deals by bribing USAID employee with pricey basketball suites, a trip to the vineyard, and even a down payment on a house. Isn't that nice? And once he got paid, Barnes burned through pallets of cash, doing everything but what we paid him to do. We reached out to Walter, never got back to us. Trump came to office and solved the problem with 2 words: Tom Homan. The new border czar said only 95 migrants were found at the border yesterday. That is the lowest daily total ever recorded. And he's doing it for a lot less than $1 billion. But there's still a lot of cleaning up that needs to be done. Tren de Agua gang members have moved back to terrorizing a Colorado apartment complex. While Homan's working hard to give every last bad hombre the boot, Democrats want to give them all lawyers.
They don't have the attention. They don't have the lawyers. And that's why the state of New York is providing $50 million to cover legal services for people who are finding themselves in this situation.
So if the checks don't clear, Democrats are already lining up to give illegals house calls.
Because you're not allowed to be here. Sir, are you an officer with the BI International? I am an officer with ICE. You're an officer with ICE? Do you have a badge? Do you have an ID? Can we see?
Ice, baby.
I don't have to show that.
Ice, ice, baby.
I'm telling you to leave. I've already
Ice,
identified
baby.
myself. I'm an officer
Can you
with
show me a
ICE.
badge or an ID?
You're not allowed to be here. Police are coming. Okay?
What are we doing that's improper, sir?
What's
Who are you?
Democrats don't want to break illegals out because they care about them. They just want more people to milk their cows.
We're going to find that milk gets a lot higher
because I don't know if any of you have ever been in a dairy farm. It is god-awful work. We're going to see that groceries and vegetables are higher. We're going to see an effect in our economy.
These people always fear mongering the rest of the United States. That's all they do. There would be no milk. There would be no farmers. What are you talking about? There would be no milk. There would be no farmers. Americans will do these jobs, okay? Thank you.
Economy, because whether people like it or not, whether Americans acknowledge it or not, undocumented immigrants are an integral part of our society and our economy.
They don't just want the cheap labor. Progressives are straight up lying about who's getting the boot from ICE and creating some really deranged propaganda. Watch.
I had a really good time today.
Yeah, me too. I really look.
What are you doing?
She's coming with us.
What are you talking about? Who are you?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we're rounding up illegals.
She was born here. She's a citizen.
I don't care. She looks like one of them. But don't worry. When she's in prison in El Salvador, she'll have lots of company.
Oh my gosh.
And former
This
White
is
House
such a
Press
movie.
Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. So Kayleigh, the Democrats are running that ad that says ICE is gonna abduct your Spanish girlfriend and take advantage of her in a mega prison.
Okay.
Sorry.
I mean, no, it is worth the laugh. This is what they're coming up with. I mean, look at this. Look at this. What about the 2024 election said this is what's going to win the day? These Democrats, and I don't like throwing around words, they are so dense. The polling shows immigration is Donald Trump's top issue. He has majority support. I mean, you talked about that 95 number, 95 illegal immigrants coming in one day to the southern border. It's 2,000 miles long. Bill Melugin said that's the most jaw-dropping statistic he has ever heard. It is the lowest number ever to come to the southern border. And the American people say, we support this. And what do Democrats do? They're going to abduct your, Spanish-speaking girlfriend and take her to prison in El Salvador. But oh, wait, at least she'll have senators coming down to have margaritas with her. Watch out, boyfriend, because you'll have a bunch of Dem senators lining up.
I bet a bunch of guys that are dating illegal alien Spanish girls are like, ICE, here's the address. She hasn't been very good. It's wild. But Kayleigh, let me ask you about this Iranian.
Shout out to the GOAT one more time. The GOAT. The GOAT. Shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Dr. Luke says, Genesis, they are terrified that there will be no voters for the Dems. Absolutely. And that's why Trump has just said to ICE to double up, double down in sanctuary cities like Chicago, California, New York, because that's where they cheat. That's where they cheat. We know where they cheat, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. So now that ICE baby is doubling up in California, I mean, if you love your country so much, why would you be waving your country's flag? And why are you here? Look, I love the United States. That's why I'm here. I love the United States. That's why I'm here. Okay? So, if you are here illegally, you're going to have to, go back.
Situation. The president's basically already decided, and now the choice is the Ayatollahs. He can give up the nuclear program peacefully, or we could just do it violently from the sky. That's where we are right now. What happens next?
President Trump, my prediction, is going to take out Iran's nuclear program. He's going to do it precisely. He's going to do it strategically. And he is going to end the Iranian regime's pursuit of nuclear weapons forevermore. Jesse, people say, why does this matter? Why is it in the national interest? Well, listen to this. A guy like Putin, not a good actor, an evil person, but the entire status quo of nuclear weapons depends on mutually assured destruction. Putin knows he will never send a weapon here. He'll get one back, and he will be blown off the face of the earth. Guess who doesn't care about that? The Ayatollah of Iran. When you combine fanaticism, no care for self-preservation, and radical religious belief with nuclear weapons, that is a danger. President Trump, He's America first. Goodbye, nuclear weapons, Iran, my prediction.
And goodbye, Kayleigh, because we're hearing you're going on maternity leave. Is this your last primetime hit in the next few months?
This is my last primetime hit. I'm so sad, Jesse. What am I going to do? You make me laugh once a week. I love it.
All right, well.
Congratulations to Kayleigh for sure. And she still looks beautiful, but she's 9 months pregnant, I'm sure. I mean, looks like. But congratulations to her. She's such a G. I mean, being pregnant and still coming on air looking this cute. Yeah, you gotta say. You know, conservative women, they are, these women are strong women. I ain't gonna look. Conservative women, y'all. Get yourself a conservative woman. Okay? All right, Whoopi Goldberg.
For most of the world, America stands for freedom. It's a place that other countries look up to. But apparently, Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar may think otherwise.
To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world to now be turned into one of the worst countries where the military are in our streets without any regard for people's constitutional rights, while our president is spending millions of dollars propping himself up like a failed dictator.
She's trying so hard to have an accent. You could tell. You can tell she's trying so hard to have an accent. Now people are saying she should go back to Somalia. This right here is just not what Americans want. Liberals keep doing this. Nobody's saying get legal immigrant out of the United States. They're saying illegal. I mean, I don't understand why it's so hard to understand.
With a military parade, it is really shocking.
One of the worst countries in the world. Yeah, that's why millions came across the border over the last few years, right? Well, if you thought that was extreme, you won't believe this, or maybe you will because it happened on The View. This is Whoopi Goldberg. She gave a shocking claim about how black people in our country are comparing to what it's like to live in Iran.
Let's just remember, too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that, we have been known in this country to tie gay folks to the car.
Where the Iranian regime is today in 2025 is nothing compared to the United States.
Keep hanging black people. So
it is not even the same. I couldn't step foot during this.
Wait. That's not what you mean to say. It is the same.
No, it's not. The year.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Whoopi Goldberg. This woman is worth millions of dollars. And she's here saying, America ain't. Like, why wouldn't you? I mean, look, these folks are just pandering to division. You can tell. What are you saying? The United States and Iran is the same? The land of the free, home of the brave, is the same with Iran? Man, The View needs to just end it right now. They need to pack up. They need to pack this show up and just leave. All right, shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. Dr. Luke with another super chat. Thank you, Dr. Luke. It says, Dams, how does it feel to be wrong about everything? Blame the party, not the voters. Absolutely, because the ideology of the party recently is just out of whack. It is out of whack. Man and women's sport. Okay. Now they want men to use women's bathroom. What in the world is going on here? And now Whoopi is saying Iran is the same with the United States. So move to Iran. Move to Iran, Whoopi.
2025 in the United States is nothing like if I step foot wearing this outfit in Tehran right now.
I'm sorry.
I think it's very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're black.
Not for everybody.
Not if you're black.
Whoopi Goldberg has millions of dollars. Whoopi Goldberg's a famous actress. She's on a talk show, Kennedy, and it's time to educate Whoopi Goldberg. Let's meet Mahsa Amini. Mahsa Amini, we have her picture. She was in Iran, 22 years old. Didn't wear her hijab, So, of course, the morality police arrested her in Iran. She died in a re-education class in prison where she was physically abused by Iranian authorities. So apparently, this is where Whoopi would like to be.
Yes, and she would not have the privilege of being on a talk show without her hijab and talking about the Iranian regime and challenging them and criticizing them any day of the week. That is what Whoopi Goldberg experiences in the United States as a successful Black woman. In fact, the laws against women especially going out and assembling in order to fight the authoritarianism in Iran, that is met with death. Like you can receive the maximum penalty is death, not only for, political protest, but also if you are in a same-sex relationship. The government can kill you. In this country, we have Pride Month. If she can't recognize the difference, she should not be on the air disseminating this claptrap.
Yeah, and they do kill you. Harris, listen to this from PBS based on a UN report. So after Mahsa's death, the Iranian government cracked down, killing more than 500 people, 22,000 detained. This included children. This is hard to listen to, but apparently they killed people with shotguns, assault rifles, submachine guns, found a pattern of shooting people intentionally in the eye. Some of those detained faced sexual violence, including rape, threat of rape, forced nudity, groping, and electrocution of their genitals. Welcome to Iran, Whoopi Goldberg, but apparently it's harder to live in this country.
Well, it's 2025. I don't know if she knows that. And that's not to say that bad things didn't happen previously in this country. But on Juneteenth, where we recognize the emancipation from slavery, Texas, the last state, on this particular day, and she does this the day before, she's ignorant of the facts. I want to try to be kind because my expectation for Whoopi Goldberg is lower. I liked her better when she was playing on, an actress on Star Trek The Next Generation, where her character was based off this planet in space with aliens. Now she's become one. Read, learn. She says a lot of offensive things. It's what they're about. It's why people look at that show and go, I can't watch it anymore. But this goes beyond the pale, because if you can't see where we're coming from, then you have no hope for where we can go. That's as racist as anything else I've heard.
And Dr. Siegel, I don't know if they hand out research packets on The View, but they need to start.
There's no question. By the way, Harris also in the last hour on her show is really brilliant on this about it being Juneteenth and about how Black people in this country now can rise to be a great anchor, or they can be a doctor or a lawyer. And I don't know what Whoopi was talking about.
The fact that the 44th president of the United States was Barack Obama, I don't get it. Why Whoopi Goldberg would say what she just said. Has she forgotten that Barack Obama was the 44th president of the United States? Okay.
Well, when she played Gannon on Star Trek, she actually was a bartender talking to people and meeting them where they live. She's not meeting people where they live. And one more thing, Iran just passed another law at the end of last year, making it even worse for young women and girls, where they can be put to death for this, for showing their legs, like the women on The View. It's unconscionable that she would try to make a moral equivalency here.
Yeah, how offensive. I mean, Emily, there are a lot of courageous Iranians who have stood up to the government, young women in particular, and said, no, I want freedom, and they've lost their lives because of it. I mean, does Whoopi have any understanding of that?
Well, I want to focus, if I may, on the Congresswoman's remarks that I just found so patently offensive also. Says this is the worst country in the world, everyone is fleeing. Says the person who is from Mogadishu, whose family fled a civil war that has gone on for decades. The global rankings of Somalia list it as literally among the least stable on the entire planet and among the most violent on the entire planet, where people are subjected to massive terroristic explosions and violence and murders and abuse all day, every day, with an unpredictable quotient that is absolutely frightening, including the loss of many American and our allies' lives there.
Shout out to the GOAT. Dr. Luke, thank you for another super chat. Dr. Luke says, Iran is sounding like heroes for the left. I'm just joking. Relax. Actually, Dr. Luke, you may be right, because they do this every time. if you look at what happened in California, they kept saying that it's a peaceful protest. It's right there in front of you. People are literally looting stores, burning cars, waving their flags, and throwing rocks at federal agents. The left kept saying it's a peaceful protest. Same thing with Iran. Oh, Iran is the bullshit. Why wouldn't you just put America first? I don't understand. I'm trying to figure it out. They make America look so bad. Like when they talk about America, when you listen to a leftist, a left-leaning liberal, because there's a liberal. There, in my opinion, there are liberals, and there's left-leaning liberals. Okay, when you listen to a left-leaning liberal, they basically talk down on America, and it's like, why do you not love your country? I'm trying to understand.
And for this sitting congressperson to say somehow this is equivalent to the United States and then say everyone, that's why people are fleeing this. The only people fleeing this country are illegal immigrants with criminal records or Rosie O'Donnell. Everyone else is real happy that they live in the good old US of A. And when she says that we reject the things that have happened this week, what, celebrating the army? Yeah. What, protecting Americans? I'm sorry, this is the greatest country on earth. So I really hope her constituents yet again rethink putting that person into a place of power in this country.
Exactly. This is the greatest country on earth. It is what it is.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Paul Morrow, Jessica Tarlov, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Vibe. President Trump is keeping them guessing and giving a big deadline on whether the U.S. military is going to get involved in the deadly conflict between Israel and Iran. Now, this comes amid a massive escalation. Officials say more than 70 people were injured after an Iranian missile barrage slammed into a hospital in Israel. The IDF striking back by targeting more Iran nuclear sites, including a reactor. President Trump meeting all day with his top intelligence officials, and Caroline Levitt is sharing the president's latest thinking.
Have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." Iran has all that it needs to achieve a nuclear weapon. All they need is a decision from the supreme leader to do that. And it would take a couple of weeks to complete the production of that weapon, which would, of course, pose an existential threat, not just to Israel, but to the United States and to the entire world.
The conflict between Israel and Iran causing The View to make some pretty outrageous comments and comparisons. Whoopi Goldberg just stepped in it.
I'm sorry, but where the Iranian regime is today in 2025 is nothing compared to the United States.
Keep hanging black people. So
it is not even.
Yeah,
I think it's very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're black.
Not for everybody.
Not if you're black.
Earlier today, I imagined what it would have been like if you had been on the set and what you would have said to Whoopi when she said that.
Well, her reaction is born of identity politics. If you help these Jews, you're going to hurt the blacks, which is weird coming from a lady named Goldberg. But I believe on The View, they have a rule. One panelist has to say something so crazy every day.
I just want to say this before we keep this show going. This country is called the United States. It is not the divided state. Okay? This is the United States. Everybody has to come together. Whatever your race is, whatever your ethnicity is, we have to come together. Shows that keep dividing the United States is not helping the United States. Not if you're black. What does that even mean? Coming from a millionaire, trying to pander to race. We should not keep promoting division. We should promote unity.
That everybody else looks sane. And that day was Whoopi's, and Joy Behar and Sunny Huston suddenly don't look totally bat poop nuts. But I think she's like, it seems to me since Trump, 2015, 2016. She's now just operating on non-conscious thinking. Everything is a reflex, and she says what's easily retrievable. It's Whoopi AI. It's not even a real Whoopi anymore. She just has race, and she just pulls out of it. You know, one of the many benefits of Trump is his refusal to land in the world of the half opinion. You know, he thinks it through. You know, they're both sides traffic in half opinions. We don't want war, half opinion. We don't want Iran to get the nuclear bomb, a half opinion. And those are the easiest opinions to have because no one's going to disagree with you on either one because you're not discussing the risk of both decisions. Both decisions have risks. So in a weird way, half opinions are propaganda. Telling the story without a risk is a lie, and it helps you advance your cause. That's propaganda. So then you look at Trump. This is a good example. You know, people can say Americans could drop bunker busters to destroy Iran's facilities. That's a half opinion. What does Trump do? He says, do they work? You know, he thinks it through by asking the question that bureaucrats don't ask because they don't want to sound stupid, but he's actually asking, does it work? And I think that's why we elected him. One of the reasons is that he isn't going to do anything where he's going to lose. That's why I didn't believe that he lost in 2020. And he's right. But he won't step in until he knows it's going to work. And so you voted for him. You got to trust him.
The other thing I was thinking about, Paul, is he's got a remarkable skill of keeping people guessing, but being very transparent.
Yeah.
And it must be very confounding to people in Iran who are like trying to figure this guy out. But he's basically showing you his work, but also keeping it a secret.
Yeah, and when you think about it, he's talking about a deal, right? And they're sitting in Tehran saying, deal? What deal? What is the? What are the options that we have here? Because if you think about it, where do we stand? Our red line is absolutely no enrichment, right? And we're supposed to have unfettered access to all the uranium enrichment sites. That's the deal we got now. That's what the AIEA is supposed to be doing right now, and they told us to go pound sand. I think really what's going on, I'm not advocating for any of the positions here, because at the end of the day, you have to remember something. They have a lot more facts than we do up on Capitol Hill. Trump is operating off of far more facts than we are. So at the end of the day, as Craig said, we elected him, we got to trust him, right? But the immediate issue is Ferdow. I mean, that's just it. So you don't have to go all the way. People talk about regime change, everything else. You just got to mitigate the immediate issue. If you do that, and like I said, take the deal off the table. If you get rid of the immediate threat, well, then you bought some time. Now, ultimately, regime change is where this thing has to devolve to. At the end of the day, whether you like it or not, you have an adversary who cannot exist without that bomb. The mullahs cannot list long-term without that bomb. They learned the lessons of Gaddafi. We need this thing. They're going to keep trying. That's just all there is to it. So you got this adversary. They say they want to kill you. They're trying to get the bomb. At the end of the day, at some point, they got to go. But you don't need that right now. You just got to mitigate the immediate problem, which is Ferdow. What I think he's doing is, and that's why I think you can see this 2-week window, the last thing he wants is any American blood here. And right now, the Iranians still do have some offensive capacity. They do have the ability to fire missiles, maybe hit some American assets, and in many ways, almost worst, is hitting some of our adversaries, some of our allies. You get some dead Europeans and et cetera in some place inside the red zone in Iraq. We got an international Megillah. That's the last thing he wants. I think he's buying time, waiting till they are out of that capacity. And then, my own opinion, I think that's when he moves. And then ultimately, long term, if you notice, we hit their internal security. That's the besieged. That's the one who keep their people down. The Israelis took that out yesterday. They're also now hacking the media and saying, rise up, unlike what we saw during the Green Revolution. I think long term, that's the second stage. But the first stage is Ferdow. And from where I sit, you got to mitigate that.
Dana, can I ask Paul a question? It's important.
Yes, sure.
What's a Megillah?
Do I have to explain all the NYPD isms to you?
I don't know what it is either. I thought I would look it up.
You never heard the term Megillah?
No, what is it?
It's like related to Fugazi.
He said, Paul used a phrase, pound sand. I have a feeling that if they do go through with this, that's exactly what this would be pounding some sand.
Yeah, when he says it could last 2 weeks, I'm looking at what 2 weeks is away from, and that would be July 4th. So I could see Trump lighting up the skies over Iran on the 4th of July, or I could see him doing it this weekend. maybe he's bluffing. I have no idea, but it looks like it's moving pretty quickly because if you take out the underground nuclear site, you can't just sit back and watch and let the Iranians retaliate and hit your bases and hit your ships. You have to have a pretty significant bombing campaign to neutralize any sort of Iranian offensive capacity. That's missiles, command and control. You got to hit everything. So you're just not a sitting duck. When we think about negotiations, Trump's made it pretty clear. This thing's either going peacefully or violently. And the decision's the Ayatollah. Ayatollah's 86 years old. He's been in power for 3 decades. He's a religious revolutionary. Is this the kind of guy that's going to negotiate? He's a proud old man that's probably going to go down fighting. Now, the question is, if you hit these underground facilities, does he stay in power? Can he stay in power? Can he wield power in a country where you've lost your ballistic missiles and you've lost your only leverage, which is your nuke? I don't know. So do you leave him in power and wait for a coup? Or do the Israelis get so pissed after hospital strikes that they're going to just go in and launch a decapitation strike? I don't know. The thing about Iraq and Iran and makes it a lot different is the geography. If you look at Iran, it's surrounded by mountain ranges. All right, so it's very hard for foreign fighters to pour in from all over the region. And not only do they have the borders that are surrounded by mountains, I mean, look at that. You have 2 major deserts in there. So once you get over the mountains and through, you have deserts you have to go through. So this is not Iraq. And also, if you do, God help us, if you do go in and there is some sort of coup and you have to maintain some sort of government there, remember what happened in Iraq, the de-Baathification. That backfired. We fired everyone in the military, every cop, every civil administrator, every bureaucrat, and then all those guys got pissed off and then left with a gun to form a militia, and there's no one to run the country. So things have been learned. Or, since all options are on the table, Dana, I could see Trump just letting the Israelis get their hands even dirtier and launch commando raids into this site. So when he says all options on the table, they are. And I agree. I trust Donald Trump to make the right decision here. Whatever he does, I think it'll be the right call.
What's also interesting, Jessica, is the polling that came out last night that shows a great majority of the American people are concerned that Iran could have a nuclear weapon and that they support action. And I think what's interesting, you could get online and you can go way down deep and you could be online for 2 days straight while you're sitting at home waiting to come back to work until the medicine kicks in. And then you get a poll like that and you're like, oh, okay, actually people are pretty sane.
Yeah, I think another question that the Fox poll asked was about does the Israeli strikes make the world more dangerous? And 59% said yes to that. So you can, as usual with polling, you can find the answer that you want in there. And I would say it's a uniform feeling that people know that Iran is an adversary, that they don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. But once you start having a conversation about regime change, Americans get very skittish about this. And it was the first time, at least, that I had heard a senator mention it this morning. Tom Tillis was being interviewed, and he said it's time for regime change. And that is something that really flies in the face of Donald Trump, the peacetime president, or Donald Trump as the campaigner. I think that if this is packaged as we are going to take out their nuclear weapons, but we are not trying to take over their country, and we're not going to get engaged in decades-long wars that we have no business being in. People remember what that was like, and they don't enjoy it. It's also interesting to me, Senator Mark Warner, who is the ranking Democrat on the Intel Committee, was echoing what Tulsi Gabbard had testified to back in March, where she essentially said, Iran is not on the precipice of having this weapon.
Do you believe that?
I don't know. I don't think Mark Warner has any reason to back up Tulsi Gabbard for fun, right? He didn't vote for her. He doesn't think that highly of her. And so I believe that Bibi Netanyahu is taking advantage of the situation, and he knows that Trump is going to back him up, and that Trump believes that the Israelis have earned this. I'm going to use the point, Greg, that I was supposed to make 2 days ago, that he has faith in the Israelis to be doing what's in quote unquote, the best interests of the region. But you're going to have a real issue if this turns into a redux, putting aside the topography of Iran, of what we have already seen before, and you're not going to have an American appetite for it. I also wanted to note, I was listening to Admiral Stavridis. I always mess up pronouncing his name, and he was talking about the implications of hitting Fordo. And he said you could essentially be creating a dirty bomb. So you explode this nuclear facility, and then you have enriched uranium just flying around in the sky, and you could be poisoning people. And that's something that I hadn't heard discussed before and should be a consideration. But if Israel can essentially get rid of their missile capacity, just wear them out, maybe that's what the 2 weeks is. We'll see what they have after 2 weeks.
Can I throw in one curveball at the end here?
Is it a Megillah?
Yes, here's the Megillah. If Ukraine had kept their nuclear weapon,
this wouldn't have happened.
There wouldn't have been
That's the Gaddafi
right.
factor.
But also they were told that we would protect them if we took away their nuclear weapons.
Yeah, so
and we didn't.
Maybe we don't do that again.
I gotta.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
If it's another day, you can bet it's another dumpster fire for the Democrats. Sorry, Jess. According to the New York Times, the DNC is in chaos and desperate for cash. Things are so bad. Top officials are actually talking about borrowing money just to pay the bills. A separate report quotes an anonymous DNC insider who called the party's chair, Ken Martin, as looking weak and whiny. And as if all that were not embarrassing enough, the Democrats launched a YouTube channel that can barely crack 1,000 views. Check this out.
Every morning, the Daily Blueprint will cut through the noise and give you the real story. What you need to know today, what Democrats are doing about it, and how you can fight back and help Democrats win.
But some folks in the party, like James Carville, are keeping the faith.
The Democratic Party has been the most effective political party in the history of the world. It started Social Security. It brought civil rights. It brought women's rights. It brought gay rights. It brought the last party to bring a balanced budget to the United States of America. Okay, it shepherded the United States through the greatest age of prosperity it ever had, the 90s. The Democratic Party really does not need me to defend it. It has a record.
It does.
It does. As good as you can imagine.
Oof, I'm not sure Carville's the answer here. Dana, let me come to you. You know this ecosystem better than anybody, the D.C. funding ecosystem here. What do you make of this? They've never had trouble raising money before.
It's the Democrats' Megillah. I've tried to use it in a sentence. Don't know if it was correct. For James Carville to be talking about the best achievements of the party having been made before the current chairman was even born, that identifies the problem right there. Every day I wake up and I think, what can I compliment in the Democratic Party today? What are the green shoots? Where are they doing well? And then I read, and I didn't read this article today on FoxNews.com. I didn't read it in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Post. I read it in the New York Times because the New York Times said, you've got a huge problem. You can't raise any money. Nobody wants to be a part of you. Your brand is toxic. And you have the fact that the Biden cover-up continues to have a ripple effect. It's like it was dropped in the middle of the ocean and it continues on and it is going to swamp them for a long time to come. The credibility of the entire Kamala Harris campaign is weighing down the situation. And imagine you're a donor. He's like, how dare you? Oh, you want to send George Clooney to ask me for my money again?
George Clooney.
You guys lied to us. You lied to us until we saw it with our own eyes at the debate. And then you were like, oh, yeah, he must really get out. And they're in a situation of their own making. It is a real Megillah.
And, they paid Beyonce all that money and everything else. So, Jess, I got to come to you. I mean, in a lot of ways, the money is the purest metric you could have. Is this a referendum?
To some degree, for sure. What I think is most interesting is they're not having a small dollar donations problem. So the grassroots is still giving. Right. They're having a big donor problem, to Dana's point. The folks that you go to and you ask for $1 million checks or to do a huge fundraiser that's going to bring in $5, $10, $15 million. And I think that those people who want to spend their hard-earned money on Democratic victories want to see a new game plan. They want to see what all the buzz is about with Ken Martin, who's the new head of the DNC, who beat out Ben Wickler, who's an incredibly accomplished organizer. He runs the Wisconsin Democratic Party. And they want to see more evidence. Now, in terms of how it's been going for Democrats, we've been doing really well in all the elections that have happened since the general election. So overperforming sometimes by 30, 40 points. And that makes a difference to people for sure. We're also looking at a Republican Party that's not doing that well. I mean, Donald Trump right now, minus 18 on the economy, minus 30 on inflation. Those are the issues that people go and vote on. In defense of the YouTube, I went on the GOP's YouTube, latest videos, 215 views, 137 views, 433 views, 281 views and 250 views. So both parties need a better YouTube game.
All right, fair enough. But let me ask you this, Jesse, let me come to you. What is it that you think the big donors, which is what we're talking about here, what brings them back? What are they looking for?
I'd wait. I wouldn't give right now. I'd wait until you win the midterms, and then I'd give it to Gavin Newsom, because you can't give it to a woman. They're 0 for 2 with women. And Jessica, it doesn't.
Terrible with money, too.
It doesn't matter. Trust me.
No, usually they handle the finances. At
Yeah,
home.
in your house, do they?
Yes.
Oh, that's why you're broke. You know, the YouTube thing, it's funny. You can't just put a blonde on TV and have it be a hit. It's not Fox, okay? They need to have a little more talent, Jessica. And Carville's saying the Democratic Party started the Civil War. Okay, it's not all hits, Carville. You have to be a DNC chairman if you have to be wealthy, well-connected, and fun at fundraisers. You need someone like Terry McAuliffe. You can't put Shaggy from Scooby-Doo up there, who got humiliated by the Hog, who looks like Tinkerbell, or weighs less than Tinkerbell. And so, I don't know, Jessica. I would just wait it out. And you might not even win the House, because I have a new poll. It says there are crumbs of comfort for the GOP. Not saying red wave, but a lot of people are saying the short-term turbulence that Trump is saying is going to be worth it if it ends up good economically. And a lot of Democrats are economic nationalists, just like Donald Trump. They support deportations. They support Trump on immigration. Catch this.
Are you reading Playbook?
A quarter of Kamala Harris's voters approve of Trump's immigration policy.
Oh, my.
So?
Oh, my.
All right, that's a mic drop moment. Greg Gutfeld, let me ask you this.
Sure.
I have a theory here.
What do you got, Paul?
What do you
got? Go, spit it out, okay?
Is that his moral?
Spit it out.
He's awful.
Where do
right?
I get to
I'm
HR,
sorry, this was
man?
happening
Get HR up right
Here's the issue, okay? I'm going to be frank with you.
You should see my Gutfeld, by the way, all right? Which I'm taking mercy on you.
You should see my Brit Hume.
All right.
Paul, you're a great man.
That's not a real impersonation. That's you in the old days. All right. I have a theory here. The big donors are scared. And I think they're scared because, number one, they don't want to lose their money. But number two, there's a lot of investigations coming. Would you donate to people that are throwing Molotov cocktails at cops?
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News.
Nope. Nobody's donating to looting situation.
Fox News alert, President Trump making it very clear that if America has to get involved in Iran, it'll end on our terms. And it looks like he's preparing for any scenario. The E-4B Doomsday plane just made an unexpected flight to D.C. The $500 million aircraft was designed to withstand nuclear blasts and keep top government officials safe when threats are off the charts. And it landed at Joint Base Andrews under the cover of night on Tuesday. Right now, the United States has 2 destroyers anchored in the Mediterranean, the USS Sullivans and the USS Thomas Hudner. Both of these $100 million platforms have been shooting down Iranian missiles. To the south is a carrier strike group, the USS Carl Vinson in the Arabian Sea just off the coast of Iran, flanked by 4 warships providing security to U.S. bases in the region, and a super carrier, the USS Gerald Ford. It's on its way and should be on the scene soon. Dozens of F-16s have been repositioned from Italy to the Saudi Arabia base, and F-22s and F-35s are on their way. Now, if we're going to drop bunker busters on the Iranian nuke site, it'll be done by B-2 stealth bombers. These aren't officially in the region, but sources tell Primetime they've seen tactical movement in the last 24 hours. This is a major moment for Trump, and he's aware that his legacy is on the line. Quote, he is in his last term of his presidency. He may or may not see a window to do something that is something he's always believed is right and is important for the world and has the added benefit of being legacy building. And this is a window. It's never existed before. It will likely never exist again insofar as he can do anything about it. So while he has that window, he's going to take a shot, even if it is not something that everybody agrees with. Now, the president says he hasn't made up his mind, and he's keeping his options open, and we believe that. Iran's foreign minister is flying to Switzerland for talks with the Europeans tomorrow. 47's offering them one last chance.
Regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks."
This could be Trump giving the
just know
Ayatollah a final olive branch.
I'm sure the 2 weeks is probably like tomorrow night. But, you never know. He's just giving Iran more time to come back to their senses.
Or it could be a pump fake, and we could go in tomorrow. And 2 weeks from today is July 4th. Maybe Trump's planning for fireworks halfway around the world. We don't know. The CIA director told lawmakers Iran's locked and loaded and their nuke programs at the goal line. Quote, "It's like saying a football team marched 99 yards down the field, got to the 1 yard line, and they don't have the intention to score." Now, the CIA told us things before the Iraq war that turned out not to be true. The difference is this time, the inspectors have seen the program. We've all seen the program, and the Israelis see everything. There's no question the Iran nuclear program is alive and active. The only question is how long it'll take them to nuke up when they get the go-ahead. Now, Iran is the world's lead sponsor of terror, and with a nuclear weapon, it could hold the world hostage. Not to mention, they control the shipping lanes where a third of the world's oil goes through. If President Trump does decide to drop bunker busters on their nuke site, we're not going to sit back and let the Iranians retaliate. So there has to be a massive air campaign that goes along with this. We'd have to knock out Iran's ballistic missile stockpiles and any offensive capability. So we're not sitting ducks. There's probably a rich target list that Trump would have to approve. The Guardian reported Trump was getting cold feet, worried about the effectiveness of bunker busters and not willing to use tactical nukes. But the White House tells Fox that's not true. Everything's on the table, even tactical nukes. The big question is if the United States does target Iran, what happens next? The White House isn't considering boots on the ground. Iran's 3 times the size of Texas and surrounded by mountains.
Invading Iran by land? Almost impossible. And here's why. To the west, the Zagros Mountains, a rocky wall with narrow passes, easy to defend, hard to attack. To the north, the Elburz Mountains, rising like a shield beside the Caspian Sea. To the east, more rugged mountains near Afghanistan and Pakistan. Still no easy entry. And in the middle, 2 deadly deserts, Dashti Kavir and Dashti Lut. Scorching heat, salt flats, sand that swallows tanks, mountains, deserts, bottlenecks. Iran is a natural fortress, and that's why invading Iran by land is a military nightmare.
Iran's different than Iraq because you wouldn't have legions of foreign fighters pouring into the country to target Americans. Well, because there won't be any Americans there, and 2, good luck getting in. The war is escalating quickly. Last night, an Iranian missile struck an Israeli hospital. Israel's calling it a war crime, and its defense minister says the Ayatollah can no longer continue to exist. Israel just destroyed a nuclear reactor, which was producing plutonium. And no one's coming to the Ayatollah's side. Hezbollah hasn't fired a single missile since the start of the campaign. The Shiites haven't targeted American military bases in Iraq. And the Houthis in Yemen have been quiet. The Ayatollah is all alone, hiding in a bunker. His nuclear scientists and generals all assassinated. He's 86 years old. He's ruled Iran with an iron fist for over 3 decades. The man's a proud, stubborn, religious revolutionary. Something tells me he's going to go down fighting. Now, if the United States neutralizes his nukes and his missiles, is he still able to wield power? The Iranian economy is a disaster. He can't protect his people. He's mistreated them for years. So the streets will start to teeter. It's possible he hangs on, but a coup is likely. Or does Trump greenlight Israel to take him out?
If the Ayatollah stays in command, he will retaliate, and
Israel will kill him.
Activate sleeper cells.
Israel's going to kill him.
Now, we don't know that, but we have to use a light touch. This is delicate. We don't have a problem with the Iranian people. We have a problem with the regime. An unarmed Iran that's not an arch enemy of the United States could lead to the region uniting under American sponsorship and give us major leverage over the Chinese, who import almost all of their oil. The risk is being too ambitious and not grounded in reality. There's also a risk of doing nothing. There's downside to everything. Sleeper cells could activate, cyber attacks, terror attacks, slippery slopes. Donald Trump's deliberately and carefully calibrating each of these scenarios. And we elected him for moments like this. It all comes down to one thing.
Trust in President Trump. President Trump has incredible instincts, and President Trump kept America and the world safe in his first term as president in implementing a peace through strength foreign policy agenda. And with respect to Iran, nobody should be surprised by the president's position that Iran absolutely cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. He's been unequivocally clear about this for decades, not just as president, not just as a presidential candidate, but also as a private citizen.
Click.
Facts. This is why he was voted for by 77.3 million Americans. So I say, you know what? Trust in the person you voted for and put his
In
hands
1979,
on
a
God.
massive revolution in Iran brought about the Ayatollah Khomeini to power. The then Shah of Iran and his wife, Her Imperial Majesty Farah Pahlavi, were forced out of their homeland. This is them leaving at the airport. But under the Ayatollahs, the freedom that they promised never materialized. In fact, they cracked down, beating and imprisoning women who refused to wear the hijab, gay Iranians, anyone who dissents. Now the son of the late Shah, His Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi, who has been in exile, is advocating for a new future for Iran. He says he believes that the moment is now. He posted this on social media, quote, "The Islamic Republic has reached its end. It is in the process of collapsing. Khamenei, like a frightened rat, has gone into hiding underground and has lost control of the situation. What has begun is irreversible." I spoke with him moments ago, the exiled Crown Prince of Iran. Here's our talk. Crown Prince, thank you very much for joining us at this historic moment in time. It's good to have you with us.
Good afternoon, Martha. Good to be with you as well.
Tell me, first of all, Crown Prince, what is your understanding of what is actually the situation on the ground right now in Iran?
The latest report that we have had, Martha, is that the control apparatus of the regime is almost collapsing. And we see more and more of that reports that are coming to us from personnel within the military or intelligence that says so, that it's really falling apart much faster than it was, let's say, last week. The problem, however, is that the regime has cut off the nation from any communication. Internet and even landlines are down. Families that are trying to figure out what's happening to their loved ones cannot communicate. And I hope that we can overcome this problem very soon so the nation is not detached or unable to communicate, which, as you know, is crucial for anything that needs to be done. The regime is so desperate that it's now taking this initiative to impede on the process. But I know we will overcome this. It's a big challenge. And my compatriots are extremely resilient. Many of them have stood, in Tehran, besides those who have left the capital city. And their resolve is amazing. Their courage is really amazing. It's a shout out to them that despite all the hardship, they believe that this time victory is near. And we need that courage and that moral support that the world needs to also give us, that this time they're going to be on our side rather than continue thinking that this regime will ever provide a solution. Historic opportunity to put an end to all the problems, not just the nuclear threat, but every other thing that has been associated with this regime ever since it took over. And I think my compatriots have proven that despite the threats, despite the repression, despite being executed, besides being tortured, besides being shot in the eye, they're still in the streets, standing firm, and hopefully at some point the world will say, now it's time for us to step in and allow for this process to take its natural course, help the Iranian people overcome this regime, because everybody, as a result, will benefit. Not just my compatriots, of course, but I think many people around the world will understand how different a different Iran could be for all of us.
We know that President Trump is currently considering the use of a bunker buster bomb on the Fordo facility in Iran, which is believed to have a nuclear facility buried deep into the ground. What would you say to President Trump as he considers that option?
One of the concerns that often is associated with hitting nuclear facilities is the risk of radiation. That could be something very important to contemplate. I hope it doesn't get to this point. I think there's enough damage done to the regime without having to take it to the next level. But if the objective finally is for this regime to completely collapse, the better element, much stronger than a bomb and much more effective, are the people themselves. I'll tell you something, Martha. In the past 48 hours, and of course even before that, but especially as a result of this latest campaign, many elements within the military have reached out to me. They're communicating the fact that they're ready to defect. They're ready to peel away from the regime. They're willing to join with the people and demonstrate that to the people. Some elements within the intelligence sector, as well as the bureaucratic setup. We are seeing more and more defections beginning to take place, which is something that I anticipated and I have called for, because they realize that it's pointless to stay there and try to defend a regime that doesn't care about the nation, that doesn't care about our country. And there are, at the end of the day, some proud nationalists. They believe in Iran's territorial integrity. They believe that their job is to protect the nation, not to kill people under the regime's orders. So this element is one of the factors that is beginning to happen. I hope that in any consideration that we have, including President Trump, he realizes that this is something that is beginning to become more and more tangible. So I think a strategic pause might be required at some point to allow that process to demonstrate itself and allow the regime to start falling on its own weight, so to speak. And we are living these moments as I speak to you right now. So I hope it doesn't get to a point that we have to go even further. But again, I'm not a military strategist, nor am I an advisor to the president. I'm just telling you that Iranians would hope that instead of our country being targeted militarily, and as painful as it is as a patriot to see that my country has been attacked, and I've always thought that we should try to avoid at the most possible such confrontation, just because diplomacy has failed, and instead allow for the process of change at the hand of the people themselves to take place. So I hope that they consider that as a critical factor, as opposed to our only option after failed diplomacy is further military strikes.
Understood. So you would not want to see the United States use this bunker buster at Fordo. Is that correct? You would discourage that?
Well, I hope that as the regime is crumbling, is that enough of a factor to have neutralized it sufficient that it cannot do anything harmful, at least in the immediate? Because the whole argument about striking is because of the imminence of the regime's threat. But they've been completely dismantled. The apparatus of air defense, the apparatus of retaliation is almost taken out. So I think.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Shout out to Anders Game. Anders. God bless you. It says, it's madhouse out here. Well, it's madhouse out there. You are going to need this. Okay, Anders. Well, while I was giving Anders a shout out, the GOAT, Dr. Luke, versus Luke Palladino, says it's with your wallet. Wait. GOAT. What are you saying? All right. Dr. Luke says, Dr. Luke versus Luke Palladino, say it with your wallet. Okay, Luke Palladino, say it with your wallet. You ain't got no wallet, so say it with your wallet. Because Dr. Luke has just started a challenge. Dr. Luke, everybody knows Dr. Luke is the GOAT, okay? On this channel, Dr. Luke is the GOAT. But the fake Luke Palladino ain't got no wallet. Show us you got a wallet right now.
that sort of pushes back a little bit the envelope, which would allow sufficient time for another phenomenon to occur, which is the one I just explained to you. Allow the Iranian people to overcome this regime, help them do that, because that option is always on the table. But what's the rush here? People are to them the ultimate factor. That's what scares the regime the most. So the more the people are empowered, the quicker we can reach that end.
So you have said that you don't seek power, but you are ready to fulfill a duty if called upon. If the people supported or asked you to return as Shah for a period of time during transition, would you be open to that option?
I don't think I need a title to perform as a transitional leader. I think the reason people are looking for me to play that role is because of their confidence in me, their trust in me, and I think to a great extent the track record that I've demonstrated in the past 44 years since I began. And that trust in me allows me to play that national leader role, if you will, and be able to be the element that assembles people together on a common agenda, knowing that we might differ in opinion, but we are committed to the democratic outcome. So
Oh my God. Anders says, Dr. Luke, my wallet's not looking too good. My wallet ain't looking so good, Dr. Luke. Anders. Thank you, man. Appreciate you, Anders. God bless you. Shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. Thank you. You are truly appreciated. Uh-oh. Looks like Palladino is back in his mom's basement.
I don't think I need to have any particular title. That would be putting the carriage before the horse, so to speak. Let us be focused on the job at hand. The job at hand is A, eliminate this regime and replace it with a secular democratic alternative. And this is exactly the end game that I'm looking at, and I'm not looking past that one at this time. I'm focused only on this mission, and I hope my compatriots will understand that we need not prematurely discuss issues that will be determined down the line.
So he's encouraging the people to change the trajectory in Iran more so than the potential of a bomb destroying Fordo. So we're going to have more of our...
And that's the crown prince of Iran. He was, well, in exile right now. So if he becomes the leader in Iran, Iran would just boom for sure. All right, here we go.
Let's take a moment to look at the facts as they stand right now. There's a lot going on. Israel, they control the skies over Iran and are hitting one military target after another. They are hitting their nuclear facilities. They've taken out their nuclear scientists. They've taken out their top military personnel. They are pounding them around the clock every day, every night. Meanwhile, Iran is getting desperate. They're launching missiles now at civilian areas in Israel, worse than ever, as today they struck a hospital. Doesn't get any lower than that. But these attacks are weakening. They're getting more disorganized as Israel now is hunting down, eliminating Iran's missile launchers, and they're doing so successfully. Also, indications tonight that Iranians may be running out of missiles and the batteries to launch them. And as Jennifer Griffin just reported, there is a massive U.S. military buildup in the region. American bombers now lining up at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. F-22 stealth fighter jets en route to the Middle East, and numerous other military and naval assets have been in the area for weeks. One thing seems pretty certain tonight, and that is that the Iranian, quote, republic will not have a nuclear program at the end of this conflict, and Israel may or may not need our help taking out Iran's top secret, Fordo nuclear facility deep inside under that mountain. We have the bunker buster bombs that can do it.
Shout out to Jet. God bless you, Jet. Thank you for the super chat. Jet, God bless you. He says, mind to think Dr. Luke scared of Luke Palladino. Man, where is Luke Palladino? I think he ran into his mom's basement because he's been quiet. He's been quiet since the GOAT called him out. He's been quiet. And that's the thing about liberals. All they know how to do is talk. Talk. Ain't got no action. No action, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Jet. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you to Enders. Enders Game. God bless you. And of course, thank you to the GOAT, Dr. Luke.
As we reported.
And thank you to the moderator, C. Shelley. It's a hard job, but you do a wonderful job. God bless you, C. Shelley. Thank you.
And the Stealth 2 bombers that can drop the massive payload without being.
Uh-oh. Rain Promo. God bless you for the super chat as well. God bless you, Rain Promo. Thank you for the super chat. Where is Luke Palladino?
Detected over the skies in Iran. Every military operation, we always pause. It does have danger. There's always danger when there's any military conflict. Not the first choice, but they are the #1 state sponsor of terror. They have killed Americans. We'll get into more details in a minute. Now, it would be by far the best, most efficient way, meaning the bunker busters, to take out this site, this remaining site at Fordo. But in the end, I suspect it will be gone one way or the other. And tonight, somewhat surprisingly, President Trump is still.
Oh, God. Dr. Luke, the GOAT. Okay. He says, poor Palladino. Poor Palladino, ladies and gentlemen. Poor Palladino. Yes, we know there are two narratives, okay? Who cares? My Trump supporters are better than your Trump deranged. It's over. Mic drop. Where the mic at? Mic drop. Mic drop.
Working on a more peaceful.
And shout out to BB Buster, man. God bless you.
Solution. According to reports tonight from the White House, there is a, quote, substantial chance for a diplomatic solution. Now, keep in mind, Iran has zero leverage at this moment. They have, in many ways, already lost the conflict. They have no control of the skies of their own country. And as the president said, unconditional surrender and no weapons moving forward. That's got to be part of any deal, and that deal has to be made expeditiously. While this would be the ideal solution, I'm not exactly sure they even know what the word peace means, and the world knows that the Iranians cannot be trusted. Any signed agreement would need to include the immediate access and dismantlement of their entire nuclear program. Understand, they have no leverage at this moment. And that would include, by the way, the Fordo site, and that has to be led by an American team of scientists, also including anywhere, anyplace, anytime inspections. Anything less than that would frankly be meaningless, and we'd be back to square one. Now, if they...
Dr. Luke, I started a super chat frenzy. Now, Amber says, I like how you let people talk about just whatever everyone for differences of opinion. We're a family. We need to be able to communicate. We are communicating. This is communication, okay? We're not banning anybody, okay? We just want everybody to be respectful of other people's opinion. And that's what Dr. Luke was doing. But Luke Palladino, who is nowhere to be found now, of course, started all this stuff. So, Dr. Luke, the GOAT, put him in his place.
They agree to the most aggressive conditions, and I would add to that, they got to give up their long-range missiles and any missile that would be in range of any installation that America has in the...
Shout out to Rain Promo. Thank you for the super chat. It says, cat out of the bag. I am Maple MAGA. Here we go. Thank you. God bless you, Rain. And also thank you to Amber. God bless you.
Entire region. I guess if they could do that, their back is against the wall, but I would never trust these radical terrorists and extremists. They are now desperate. They are running out of time. Take a look.
Now, regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today.
All right, we can interpret within 2 weeks. That could be hours from now. Could be 2 weeks from now. As always, President Trump is not going to forecast the plan to the enemy. So if I were the mullahs of Iran tonight, I would act fast, because here's another simple fact that they need to comprehend and understand very deeply. You can call it the Trump doctrine. You can call it whatever the hell you want. Well, the president rightfully hates war. He does. He prefers peace. He gave them 60 days, and he has done everything he can do to avoid war. He also has a backbone, and he's no isolationist, and he's proven that in the past. A president who took down ISIS, al-Baghdadi and his associates in his very first year without getting the United States into one of those long, protracted wars that everybody keeps talking about. It's a president that took out the #1 terrorist of Iran, and that would be General Soleimani, sending a very clear message, again, without any protracted conflict. It's also a president that used the mother of all bombs to take out the entire terrorist encampment in Afghanistan. Do we forget that part? The president has stated many times, over and over again, Iran, he's been clear. There's no ambiguity here. Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. And that is the correct policy, or the world would risk a potential modern-day Holocaust, and that is not hyperbole. Look at the hundreds of thousands of rockets over the decades that Iran or their proxies have fired into Israel. And how many Americans have they also killed over the years? It simply cannot happen. Now, they have been at war with us since 1979, 444 days. Americans held hostage. They threatened to nuke the United States almost every year. Now, when someone tells you who they are and what they plan to do, I would believe them, especially with their history of fomenting terrorism worldwide. This is something America learned the hard way. After 9/11, remember the 9/11 Commission report, they were at war with us. We were not at war with them. Put simply, we cannot sleepwalk into a nuclear-armed Iran. The world, America, Israel, the entire region will be held hostage. Now, if there is a solution tonight that is emerging that can keep us out of this conflict, with all of the things that I mentioned in terms of any place, anywhere, anytime inspections, if they will give up their long and short range missiles, if they will give up their missile batteries, if they will allow American inspectors and scientists to dismantle the Fordo site, great. I am open to peace. And President Trump is clear. He won't hesitate to act in the end, because unlike Obama and unlike Biden, I believe President Trump, through the ways I have mentioned, will always put the interest and security of you, the American people, first. Hey, Sean Hannity.
Facts. And of course, I know this is a hard decision to make for the commander-in-chief. That's why he's being patient with Iran. You gotta give this man credit, because he could have just rushed and made a decision like 2-3 days ago, but he's still giving them time. You know, this is why I voted for Trump, man. His discernment is just commendable. All right, here we go.
Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton is with us. Senator, they took out a hospital, for crying out loud. The Israelis, they have been going after military targets. But if you go back years, the Israelis have had to withstand what is over hundreds of thousands of missiles, mostly provided by Iran, either fired directly by them or through the proxies that they use. They have been at war with Israel for all this time. Now those missiles are more lethal than ever. And now they're on the verge. It's 2 minutes to midnight, a minute to midnight of getting nuclear weapons. That can't happen. The president's been clear. I'm not exactly sure what a peace deal would look like, but I think the conditions I laid out are the only ones that would actually work. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Sean, I agree with the details of a potential agreement that you laid out. Color me skeptical that the Ayatollahs would accept such a term. They've refused it for decades. But as you say, Iran is the one that's waged the forever war. They've waged a forever war against the United States and Israel and the civilized world since 1979. And for 25 years, American presidents have been pledging that Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. But only one, Donald Trump, actually has done something about it and has said that we're going to bring this chapter to a close soon. So as you put it, Fordo, their deeply buried underground nuclear bunker, has to be closed one way or the other. It can be closed the easy way,
it has to
or
be
it can be closed the hard
immediately.
way.
If they can't use this to buy time to rebuild their arsenal or to go deeper into their nuclear program, to me, it would almost have to be next day or within 2 days, no more than a week, Americans on the ground in the Fordo facility, beginning the process of scientifically figuring out how to dismantle it. But it would also include anywhere, any place, anytime inspections. And they have to give up their long-range missiles and, frankly, any missile that has a range to hit any American target in the region. I think that would be a fair deal, considering they have no leverage and their back's against the wall because the Israelis have kicked their ass.
Yeah, and Sean, I don't think the president is going to allow the Ayatollahs to tap him along the way so many other presidents have. This is a chance to bring this chapter to a close. History will look back kindly on Donald Trump for ending this menace to the United States, to our friends in the region, to the civilized world. And as you said, he's going to make a decision within 2 weeks. Could be 2 days, could be 2 hours. The Ayatollahs need to act fast if they want to avoid the worst possible fate at Fordo. It's going to be closed one way or the other.
What do you make of China sending these mystery transport planes into Iran? That concerns me.
Well, China has been buying Iran's oil on the black market for years, propping up their economy. We shouldn't be surprised that China is going to continue to provide some kinds of support to Iran. But what you really see is Iran being isolated. China has not leapt to Iran's defense. Russia has basically said Iran is on its own. None of their so-called proxies, their ring of fire around Israel, has any desire left to fight Israel. In some places, where they once had footholds, like in Syria, Israel now has complete freedom of action against Iran. So I think the real story here is that Iran is totally isolated. President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, has put the Ayatollahs on the back foot, and we're about to finally bring this threat to the United States to an end.
Let's bring a little politics into this. I mean, the left has been tolerant in the halls of Congress, on college campuses, of virulent anti-Semitism. And in many ways, they have been somewhat complicit. Their silence has been deafening. I find in this conflict as well, their silence has been somewhat deafening. Why are there not more outspoken voices against the #1 state sponsor of terror? To me, this is an issue of simple moral clarity, especially based on their history of following through and firing weapons, either directly or through their proxies, and also targeting Americans over the years going back to 1979. There's your forever war. They started it.
Well, yeah, Sean, if you look at, for instance, some of these protests that have broken out on campus over the last 2 years, they don't just wave the Palestinian flag and burn the Israeli flag. They burn the American flag. They don't just chant against Israel. They condemn the United States itself, which has provided them so many blessings of liberty. The same thing is true in Iran. They call Israel the little Satan. They call the United States the great Satan. They chant death to Israel. They also chant death to America because they realize that we're part of the same heritage of Western civilization that they want to overthrow. That's what the radical left in America wants to as well. It's really two sides of the same coin.
Are there any things that you might be aware of, because this kind of caught a lot of people by surprise, that the president was opening the door a little bit to maybe giving them a little bit more time after the 60 days and Israel very quickly bringing them to their knees. Is there any insight? Is there any other information that maybe the public's not thinking about that the president would know of?
Shout out to the GOAT one more time, Dr. Luke. Thank you for the super chat. He says Trump sold the auto pan and bought a bigger American flag. Oh man, the GOAT. He's just having a good time tonight. Like every night, he says Trump sold the auto pan and bought a bigger American flag. Two, actually. 100-foot whole American flag.
That would cause him to buy a little more time? Because I suspect that's a possibility.
Yeah, Sean, I don't want to speculate about what the president is thinking or about any information that we may have that's not in the public domain. But I think it is clear after a week of Israel pummeling Iran's defenses that we do have the benefit of time here. Not months, not years, but hours, days, a couple of weeks, as the president decided today. He may give the Ayatollahs one last chance to try to turn over all of their nuclear weapons program and uranium enrichment. Also to make sure that we're prepared in the region and around the world. As you rightly said, Sean, this is not without risk. Our troops in the region are at risk. We have embassies around the world. For all we know, sleeper cells could be in America because of Joe Biden's wide open border. The president is aware of all of those threats.
I think we already know they
he
are.
wants to be prepared for them.
That's not an issue in dispute, is it? He's let in known terrorists. We know they're here.
Yeah, and I think, and Sean, I think the president recognizes all of those risks and those dangers, but he understands, as he's understood for 10 years, that the danger of a nuclear Iran with ballistic missiles within a few years that could hit the United States makes all those things worth bearing for the sake of the safety of the American people.
All right, Senator Tom Cotton, we appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You guys are the best. We could keep going for as long as we want, but today is my late wife's birthday. Happy heavenly birthday to my wife. She's definitely an angel now watching over me. She was supposed to turn 30 years old today. So, her mom is here. We're going to go out. Her siblings are here as well. We're going to go out to the beach, celebrate her life, and, just reminisce on the good times. And that's the thing, you never know what life has in stock for you. So hug your loved ones, hold them close. You just never know. You just never know. So I gotta get some rest. We're gonna have a 2 hours, 45 minutes drive tomorrow. Well, today. Yeah. So God is the greatest. The United States is the greatest country in the world. And life is hard, definitely hard, but you can believe that God has you protected and God has your future in his hands. Okay, so don't don't feel like all hope is lost. All hope isn't lost, all hope isn't lost. God is the greatest. He's gonna give you the strength to carry the loss because it's hard, definitely. And we have a 5-year-old daughter, so um, yeah. But God is the greatest, man. Thank you guys for being here. Shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. Shout out to our esteemed members, Ellie, Ringmaster, Sandra, God bless you. And shout out to the hardworking C. Shelley Enders. God bless you as well. Zyra's Garden, I think I saw you earlier today. Dr. Luke says, that's sweet, Genesis. You are a good man. Coming from you, Dr. Luke, the GOAT, that means a lot. It means a lot coming from you. Thank you so much, Dr. Luke. Dr. Luke says, blessings to your wife's mother. Thank you so much, Dr. Luke. Later managed to... Thanks for being here, guys. Is it serve for your love, serve for your wife? Shout out to Jet. Thank you so much as well. Also, shout out to the veterans, the military personnel. Without them, there would be no homeland for sure. And shout out to the law enforcement officers. And shout out to Ice Baby. God bless you guys. God is the greatest. No matter how hard life gets, just know there is light at the end of the tunnel, okay? Keep believing and keep trusting God, okay? Thank you guys for being here. And fathers, take care of your kids. I know it's hard. You got to work overtime. You got to, stress yourself, break your back for your family, but you definitely have to take care of your kids. Okay. You got to log in the hours, just like you log in the hours at work. You got to log in the hours in your kid's life. Okay. You got to deposit something in your kid's life. All right. With that being said, God is the greatest. The United States is the greatest country in the world. And shout out to every one of y'all for tuning in. All right. Stay strong, y'all. Stay strong, y'all. And this is the United States of America, not the divided state of America. So I know we joke, we pull legs, and we're just making jokes. Okay. We're not trying to divide anybody. Okay. If you actually watch us, if you listen to the show, you would realize that we're just having a good time. Okay. We're not here to divide anybody. All right. We love the United States and we're just having a good time and still learning from each other. Okay. So thank you guys for being here one more time. And shout out to the GOAT. God bless you for the super chat. It means a lot. And see you guys later, man. Thank you. It is your boy Genesis, and I am signing out.